Well, all right, here we are. We're in Deep Rock Galactic again. Did you ever watch that video of the guy in the elevator, Krogan?
I don't think I watched the whole thing, but I'm familiar with it, and I watched enough of it to know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
And there's like a second version of it, I think, where like he beats the woman.
Yep. I was just wondering. So I got Krogan here. How's it going, Krogan? How's life?
It's going. It's going. It's going.
All right. We need Tunnel Rat. Oh, I should probably turn the game sound on. You know, low. Maybe around there.
May your beards be thick and your gold satchels heavy.
Cat says, yo, how are you today? Good, good. Good to see you, Cat. Good to see you, Albino, Schmerling, Knat, Slots, Emu, Johnny 5K. Yeah.
Never felt
Well,
better.
we're going to talk about space today, Krogan. Eat that.
We are.
Yeah. Wait, we have beer for space. Oh, I might have to do a
Space
couple.
beer.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second here. There, you got the. No. Okay, that's there, and then. Okay. You got to pick up this beer, but don't drink it yet.
I mean, that is one of the things I really do like about the English language, is that, you know, you can just use nouns as adjectives whenever you want.
Yeah.
Space beer. I mean,
Yeah.
space is a thing, and beer is a thing. You know. I mean, in theory, we could come up with beer space. You know, and that doesn't quite make sense, but it's like it would be space full of beer, or space
It'd be like
made
a
out
bar.
of beer.
Oktoberfest. Okay, drink this, then that.
The point is that you get some kind of idea. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
The order of the two words together conjures up a different idea.
Oh, well, I could mention it. There's that meme. Have you heard of the cum zone?
Oh god.
Okay. So that's like, is that like space beer? Wait, no, beer space? Yeah, that's what it is. Now we're in space.
See, we drank the space beer, and now we're in beer space. Now I'm back inside.
Now we're drunk. We can get undrunk with Leaf Lovers Special, though. So the Leaf Lover Special is the elf beer. So the characters whisper it when they order. They say Leaf Lover Special, please. They don't want to be heard drinking it. And then if you order it a few times, your character starts saying stuff like, "Can I have a Leaf Lover Special but thinned down with water?" I don't want it too strong.
What is... Can you crouch? What is this? I can't see what this... Okay. Deep Rock Galactic is recruiting. Hox's 4 is within our grasp. Join us. What's Hox's 4? Is that like a system?
That's the planet we're above.
Ah, okay.
Every time we go down to fight bugs, that's where we are, Hoxies.
Do you think they'll ever come up with a new planet?
What is this? A bloody
I doubt it. So I know if you press tab, you can see the map there. There used to be less regions, and rather than giving us different planets, they've just given us more regions.
Fewer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just being dumb. Anyway, yeah.
I'm gonna start correcting you when you say good instead of well. Oh.
Ah, that's a good one to do.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Stand on Lloyd's head? You can do that? Oh, wow.
I always hate those corrections, those like stock corrections that people use in media to like come off as smart, and then you notice like a half hour later the character that made the correction makes the same error, quote unquote error. Like, I remember in The Wire, there was like somebody who was just like, they were in the Baltimore Sun writing room, and one of the writers talks about, she uses the term evacuate, and the editor is just like, you can't use evacuate like that because it's transitive, and you evacuate a building, you can't evacuate a person. If you evacuate a person, then you evacuate their bowels, etc., etc. And it's like, oh god, aren't you fucking clever? Have you ever heard of semantic drift? And then she, like, the writer looks it up in the dictionary, and she's like, oh, he's right. And it's like, it's supposed to be this moment revealing, like, man, this editor's like super smart, but obviously he's never heard of semantic drift.
Spencer, how's it going? Good to see you.
Actually, it would be a transitive verb no matter what, so I don't know why I brought that up. Anyway.
Kat says you could have a game embargo or an embargo game. Well, he says I'm not sure what the latter would mean. Well, embargo game would be like, you know, some sort of like blockade game or something, right? You could have like an isometric, well, not isometric, but an asymmetric game where like one person is trying to break out and the other person is trying to hold them in.
One sentry gun ready to be built.
You could even make it like chess. There's a
Go get him, boy.
chess-like game that's asymmetric called Neffentafel. It's also sometimes called the Viking game. It's sort of an asymmetric game where it's, I believe it's from Scandinavia. Whoa. Where one team wins by capturing the other team's king, and that being said, the other team can win by getting the king to escape. You don't actually, like, there's no king on the other side. And I think it's called the King's Table because the idea is that you're like breaking into a king's banquet hall and trying to capture him, right? So this is how the Scandinavians thought of their chess.
You know, you were just talking about kings, and it just made me think of aristocrats, and it made me think about historic wealth inequality, and it made me think about what I'm working on in, yes, the Bioshock video. I'm still reading stuff and doing that because I'm weird. Anyway, I've been reading about some labor history and some historical wage averages in the United States, and I was surprised to learn that in the 1890s, the average industrial worker's work week was about 60 hours. I've honestly, because of pop culture, I thought it was a lot longer than that. I thought it would be like 80 or 100.
Really?
Platforms, place. Sentry gun.
Yeah,
Assembly.
I don't think I ever thought it was that much. I mean, when did it really start bringing down to 40? Was that Ford?
1920s is, yeah, more or less. It was like, the average was about, well, no, okay, let me correct myself. So it would be 8 hours a day, 6 days a week by the 1920s, and then by the 1940s, I think we got our 40-hour, 8-hour a day work week.
Access provided. My bag is
Are you ready for the 20-hour work week? 10-hour work week?
No. I think that's a very bad thing.
Yeah? Well, what do you think of the 40-hour work week?
platform.
I think when you get around that period of time, I think it depends on what it is you're doing. And I think this is something that people just don't like to hear, that, you know, the more specialized somebody is and the more technical knowledge they have, often it's the longer and harder they work.
Beat your maker, crazy.
People really kind of seem to think that it's the unskilled laborer who, I mean, and again, it kind of depends on what you're talking about. Like, you can't come up with these, it's kind of difficult sometimes to come up with these hard and fast rules for things, but I would say, especially really smart people, I don't think they can get away with working, you know, 20-hour work weeks. I think they'll go nuts. They have to be doing something.
Really? I feel like it's industrious
most
people
part-
that want to do things, not smart people.
Well, I think there's the correlation.
Is there?
Yeah.
I mean, there might be.
So, yeah.
I don't feel
Yeah,
like.
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like, you know, it's X all the time,
Well, think again.
but, you know, generally speaking, I would say, you know, you have a tendency to get bored easier the more intelligent you are, on average.
Possibly. That being
Unless
said,
you're
it's-
not occupied.
I mean, there's lots of leisure and sort of non-productive ways to entertain yourself, you know? There's
Right,
like some
but
people feel they
can't
really
hear
need to be
anymore.
doing things.
Right, and you can be doing things, but those things become like once your brain recognizes that something, I don't know how to explain it. You have to have meaning in your activity. Your activities have to usually mean something, and after a certain point, they don't mean anything anymore, and your brain's just like this. Oh boy. Oh boy. Whee!
Attention on needs assembly. Here, get it. Come on.
That's a nuke. Forgot I was using nukes. Well, they're dead.
I think the safest thing to do is to take off and nuke the site from orbit.
Yeah?
It's an alien's reference.
Oh, I didn't know you were in there. I thought you were over by my things still.
What's this?
I mean, I just, you know.
Yeah, but like 20-hour work weeks. I mean, I even feel like 30-hour work weeks, depending on what it is that you're doing. I think that's bad. I think people need, and it's counterintuitive because a lot of people feel like they would be like super happy if they never had to work and they never had to do anything. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. Like, you have fun for about a month, 2 months, and then you'd be like, oh my God, life has no meaning. You know, like.
Well, and I think that's especially true for men. You know.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, easiest predictors of a man's life satisfaction is his satisfaction with his work, right? So, like, a happy man is a man who does work and feels like the work he's done is in some way a meaningful contribution, right? Like, he's kind of glad he did it, and he kind of thinks that society is glad he did it.
Right.
You know? And his family.
That's a big component, and it's why it's why you can get a lot of people. It's why you can get a divide between people who value currency over meaning. Okay. Sorry. You know, you can get a lot of guys who won't make a lot of money, but will work like, you know, if you really look into what they're doing, they'll work 60, 80, 100-hour work weeks making garbage income because they think that their work is meaningful to themselves and the rest of society.
Well, and you even get, like, you know, sometimes you'll have a fairly wealthy person who, let's say, retires early, but then just does 80, 100-hour work weeks, you know.
Doing something else.
Yeah. A lot of times, like, something philanthropic.
I mean, that's why, like, retirement's kind of like... It's kind of like a poorly articulated concept. I mean, like, I think a lot of... most people hear the word and they think that, like, when you're done doing... they just get, like, silly ideas in their head.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything anymore once you retire. I mean, retire... I'm not going to get into the semantic roots of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you don't do anything anymore.
Right. Doesn't mean... Well, you get it. You said it. Bugs.
I mean, literally, the concept is to pull back, to pull yourself back. You know, in Italian or Spanish, the root is retirar or retirare, like to pull back.
Platform up.
Slot says...
Well, it's interesting in Spanish, real quick. A lot of romance, like, well, I don't know if I don't think they say this in Italian, but in Spanish they say jubilado, like, you know, like jubilated, basically. Like, you can say that, and which is kind of an interesting way to put it. You know, they also say retirado, but I don't know. I feel like maybe in English we should. What other words do we use to denote the concept of retirement? I'm not thinking of anything offhand.
I don't know. Anyone in chat can think of synonym for retirement?
If I walked up to anybody on the street and I said, you know, so-and-so's jubilated, like, they would not get the idea of retirement.
No. I can't think of any single word, you know? It's like, not working? No, I can't think of anything.
if we weren't fighting bugs, I'd look up in the thesaurus.
Yeah, well, you gotta fight the bugs.
You gotta fight the bugs. I don't gotta eat the bugs, though.
No, you don't have to eat them.
Unlike Tucker Carlson, who ate a cicada brownie the other day. He's so base, guys!
Did he?
He's
A
so base.
cicada
Yeah,
brownie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. He ate a cicada brownie. And he made a big to-do about it. And he's like, honestly, guys, it's really good. Like, you know, it was just sitting on the desk here, and I just eat things without looking at them, and I'm just, you know, so based. Eat the bugs. I'm Tucker Carlson. You know. Am I gonna live in the pod, though? Probably not.
Combat positions.
Did he say that?
No, but it's just like, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, you're paid how many millions, you know, like, yeah, I'm sure you're gonna eat bugs, you know, like, I'm sure you'll eat a bug or two on air because of what you get paid, but are you gonna go live in a pod? No.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, and again, I'm not sour that somebody like Tucker makes millions of dollars, like, that's fine, it's just, stop with the bug stuff, you know?
I mean, it's the bug stuff is weird, you know. Personally, like, I'm not that bothered by the idea of eating bugs. That being said, I'm not interested in the sort of paradigm of having these various wealthy individuals and organizations having these sort of political influences over our food.
That's what most
like,
of us
it's
are
a
upset about.
political
Most of us are
movement.
Yes. Help.
I got it. So that's what I have a problem with, the political movement.
Yeah.
Like, I've had, like, chocolate-covered ants. I've had scorpion and crickets and stuff. You know, like a lollipop with a cricket in it, that kind of stuff. Like, fine. I've had some flavored crickets. You know, they take, like, crickets and they put, like, the Doritos powder on them, right? I mean, they're fine. And I thought it would be... I actually thought it would be kind of an interesting sort of business, to farm crickets or whatever.
Yeah, but what it really is at its core, I think, is it's a dunk on Western kind. It's like, we're gonna get rid of all of your culture.
Yeah.
And you're gonna eat bugs and you're gonna live in a pod. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna own nothing. It's like the World Economic Forum way of the future. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, we're gonna squeeze absolutely every bit of value out of all of you plebes as we possibly can, and that means that you're all gonna eat bugs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, you know, they're gonna push back against us having traditional ranches with cows on them. You know, they're not just like,
Right, and, you
hey,
know,
let's eat
and
bugs
that
too.
Particularly, that hits home for me because, you know, my grandfather was a herdsman, and everybody in his family raised cattle going back a ways, I believe. And you know, this is a big part of Western kind's culture. You know, like, no, like, you know. And I don't feel that we should have to change our culture because not everybody on the planet can have a beef culture. It's like, well,
or not everyone can digest dairy.
Yeah, you know, it's just, well, it's just like, you know, well, if everybody in the world had a Western diet, then blah blah. Well, they don't have to. Why do they have to? Like, why does everybody have to come and have a first world, quote unquote, status? Like, you know. Are you saying that, like, that is the opinion? I mean, this ties back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like people that use Western kinds, aesthetic Western kinds, metrics for things as their own metrics of happiness and everything. And it's like, it's just really weird. It's gotta stop.
Yeah.
It's gotta stop. It's gotta stop doing that. You know? You know, like, if you're a black person, you don't need to play D&D and see a bunch of black D&D characters in order to, quote-unquote, be free and have, quote-unquote, civil rights. You know, like, that's just, you know, no, stop it. Stop being stupid.
Ooh. That's a lot of stuff here.
You know, do I need to dress up as, you know, a norteño with a giant belt buckle and a cowboy hat and a gold-plated AK in order to be free as a white guy? Like, no. Like, this is just stupid.
Merlin says, if we got, let's see here. If we got rid of just-in-time delivery system and force people to actually spend time taking care of and maintaining their things instead of throwing everything out and buying new versions of it, 20 hours on the clock might not be too unreasonable. Yeah, I think there are, like...
Well, that's true. That's
I think there are ways that our society is currently decadent that could easily be pulled back on, and still you could enjoy, like, a lot of generally decadence, right? Like, we could still have a lot of nice things if we, you know, had just some slight differences.
Yeah, but I do like his point here.
Well done.
You know, if
Objective completed.
if over 50% of the U.S. population were farmers again, you know, again, it comes down to, like, how do you define a work week? Oh boy, I'm getting wrecked. Oh, we need ammo. I need ammo bad.
It's all good. Did you get nitro? Not enough. Ooh, landed right on the edge. This in. Oh, we got more than enough fake parks now.
Suck on this, you freak of nature!
Whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Slot says if you're fine with eating bugs, then you're fine with the political movement. No? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, eating bugs predates the political movement to force it.
Well, I mean, it's just like, you know, for survival training. Like, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you better be willing to eat bugs. Like, does that mean you're fine? Like, yeah, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with eating bugs. It depends on the context.
Put this in here,
Objective
and
completed.
this.
Launch controls are active and awaiting your input.
So we got nitro now. We'll do this. Oh, you called the thing. That's good.
Minehead launched. Escape pod will arrive when Minehead has been
Cat says,
secured.
was what Tucker was doing some kind of skit?
I think it was. I do not think it was.
I think he got paid.
I don't know if he got paid, but I definitely think it was scripted, like, or not. Maybe not scripted to the letter, but it's like somebody was just like, okay, here's this brownie, you're gonna eat this on air and comment on it. Like, they had a conversation about it. He didn't just find a cicada brownie in his office and eat it, and then decided to talk about it on air. I mean, that could have happened, but I don't think it did.
Right. Schmerling
And
says,
it's just like,
return to bedroom chicken farming. Eggs in the sock drawer. The system fears this. You know, chickens are pretty good, you know. I wouldn't do it in the bedroom. Not the sock drawer chicken farming.
my neighbor raises chickens right on her, like, we have, like, these, well, not me, but, well, I do. But anyway, the houses around here, like, they have, like, these terraces, like these, they're kind of like tiled floor porches. So they're not really porches. Anyway, she's got a chicken coop, like, right in front of her house, like, in what would be, like, part of her driveway.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have stuff like that around here.
I mean, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of American decent-sized cities, like metros of over 1 million people, that, like, in the suburbs, you're often allowed to have backyard chickens. Now, you might be restricted in what exactly you have, how many you can have. You might not be able to have any roosters, for example. But
She has a rooster piercing. I hear them all the time.
Yeah. But you know, if you're, let's say you're a family of 4 or something, and you have 5 laying hens, and your hens, if your hens are at their prime, you know, you're getting like a half or 3/4 of an egg a day per hen. I mean, like, unless your family's eating eggs every day, you're gonna quickly find yourself with more eggs than you can eat.
3 minutes.
Could the rest of you please hurry? Stone!
So it's actually pretty good. I like the chicken farming. And you can have them eat the bugs. If you don't want to eat the bugs, you can have them eat the bugs. So if you look on YouTube,
Right, it's a pretty sustainable model if you don't want to fill America with 1 billion people like Matthew Iglesias.
yeah, if you want to fill America with 1 billion people, then you can't have small-scale, inefficient food production hardly at all, right? You have to only have corporatized, maximum efficiency food production because you're just packing that many people in. But if you have fewer people, like what we have now, you can have backyard chicken farms. There's great things on YouTube where people will take like scraps and like rotting foods that like we can't have for human consumption anymore, and they'll put them in these buckets or whatever, and they'll have these huge the soldier flies will go in there, and these soldier fly larvas will want to climb upwards. So you give them this path to climb upwards. And then there's a drop down where the soldier fly larvas just drop down, and the chickens will just sit at the drop down waiting for these big, basically bugs, these big sort of maggots, these larvae, to fall out. And there you go. It turns like rotting food into an animal food, an animal protein in the form of these maggots, and then the chickens eat it. And then the chickens create nice eggs.
What we should talk about more is having communities organized around, like if we had a 20-hour work week and like, you know, like, how do I phrase this? Having a community that has a substantial amount of its time passed each week around these kind of activities fosters very, very, very good psychological health.
Yeah, I think so.
It builds bonds, because this is what most of us have been doing throughout most of human existence, like, you know, networking, socializing, and problem solving around food production. And so this is what most people, the problem with the Industrial Revolution, really, you know, the problem with, you know, working, there's not really a problem working 60 hours plus a week, depending on what you're doing. The problem is you're doing something that's like not natural for most people to do.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the issue. It's not the whatever X hour work week. It's how society is set up. It's what most people are doing.
Well, and that's why I was thinking, you know, there is a chance in the future. I should bring up some of those pictures of O'Neill cylinders. But there's a chance in the future we could create a society where, let's say you're in a space colony, right? And most of your day is really about providing the necessities. Creating food, creating shelter, this sort of stuff. And then the advanced stuff is automated, right? So let's say you're farming, you know, you're raising your chickens, you're herding, you know, you got shepherding, right? And someone gets hurt, well then, you know, in sort of town where the cobblers are, you know, people making shoes and whatnot, and the bakers, well, there's like an automated medical station that scans the wound, analyzes it, prescribes treatments, delivers medicine, and can stitch you up, right? And so you live sort of a traditional lifestyle within a high-tech setting. I think there's a real meaningful opportunity for that. Or you could hunt mammoths. You could hunt woolly mammoths. Yeah. What do you think, Krogan?
That must have been, well, I don't know about bringing back the woolly mammoths so that we can hunt them in a traditional lifestyle, but what I will say is that must have been a very, very powerful experience. That
Oh,
must have
God,
been like
yeah.
a very, very, very unifying experience. I mean, and I think it would probably be a lot like your hunter-gatherer groups of North Eurasians and Europeans and Eastern Siberians that hunted mammoths. The men that did that probably had a similar bond like men we would find today that have undergone combat together.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like very much the same type of bond that occurs, and like anything you compare to it is just like it just pales in comparison. Because hunting a mammoth was like exceedingly dangerous. You had to have all this coordination. You know, you had to be. I mean, it was like being in a foxhole in a sense. You really had to trust the guy next to you with your life, literally. So it must have been a very, very, very powerful experience, and it probably. I mean, we did it for thousands of years, so probably had a significant impact on our evolutionary psyche or evolutionary psychological development.
KNAT doesn't want to hunt mammoths. What a baby. KNAT, what do you want to do? You want it to be Mass Effect? You want dancing blue aliens? Dancing feminist
whatever.
blue aliens? Is that what you're saying?
God. He wants Liara Tassoni to be laying on top of him, feeding him crickets.
instead of like a
Dorito
Greek
powdered
eating
covered
grapes,
crickets.
it's crickets. It's a bunch of crickets on a fishing line.
Maybe she'll be milking, you know, like what are those bugs you can technically milk, or you
Mass
can create
Effect?
milk? No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if they can milk almonds, I think you can make milk out of crickets. Just a white liquid, right? Slots is saying the glass futuristic aesthetic lifestyle is a choice, not a advancement. I mean, I don't know what you're saying. Let's look here. Wait a second. Let me bring some images up. Image slideshow. That no. Oh my God, how do I do this? Oh, maybe never mind. Let's not do that.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I've been reading, I have to read a whole lot more about company towns, but I've been reading about company towns in America.
Yeah.
And they really were a mixed bag.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of them were really good, and some of them were really, 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 really bad. But yet, all of them in pop culture have been portrayed as completely bad. But what people don't understand is, in a lot of ways, you know, it's kind of like it's like what these guys are doing. You know, you have to go somewhere where resources are, and you have to mine them. You have to collect them because, you know, in order to do that, you have to set up a society around it in order to keep doing that. You know, men can't just go there and live by themselves. They need their wives, they need their kids, and so on and so forth. And, you know, that's basically what hunter-gatherer lifestyle really was in a lot of ways. You know, people went where the buffalo were, people went where the mammoths were. So it's very interesting that the company town model is completely demonized across the board when really it's kind of like this industrial extension of the nomadic lifestyle in a weird roundabout way. You know, I mean, again, there are good and bad forms of it. There were definitely exploitative models, and there still are today. I mean, this is the other thing. Like, a lot of people who, like, they would play BioShock Infinite and be like, oh my God, Jeremiah Fink and the company towns. Oh, Ken Levine's so genius. They're criticizing American history and the company towns. It's just like, what do you think Amazon is today? What do you think Walmart is today? You know what? The console you played that stupid game on was probably, you know, it was probably manufactured by abused Chinese workers surrounded by suicide nets, and the materials for it was probably mined by African children in the mud somewhere. And, you know, and you're sitting here talking, getting all like, oh my God, look at America and how exploitative it was over its workers. And it's just like, you right now are exploiting little African children, and you have the audacity to sit here and be like, you know, yeah. And the thing to remember about that is that a lot of these models of exploitation today are not, quote unquote, white Americans' fault. Like, they are in a sense that, like, if you're participating in the economic model knowing that your Xbox is, you know, being mined, so to speak, by some little child, and you're not doing anything about it, like, you are participating. But people forget that it's like, Foxconn in China. Like, those are Chinese people abusing other Chinese people.
Right.
When you go to the Republic, when you go to parts of Africa, like the Congo or wherever, those are Africans abusing little African children. It is not some white guy who's going in there and saying, you have to use child labor. So, again, making games and making media about how human beings are economically exploited by people in power is something where it's a worthy pursuit, but you can't just blame it all on white people, and you can't just blame it all on America and Britain's Industrial Revolution. I mean, again, there are all kinds of. I've made my point, I think. It sounded like you had a slideshow to prepare, so.
Albino Hydra linked a URL, healthline.com/nutrition/cockroach milk. I don't think I'm going to click on that. Lovester says, before you can become a planetary administrator, you must prove yourself a man by successfully hunting a mammoth with your fellow man. Oh, see?
I think this is where technology could get really interesting. We could have a physical rite of passage in a virtual reality setting that mimics, imagine Neo in the Matrix or whatever. You go and you go through a mammoth hunting rite of passage and your brain can't tell the difference. We could have stuff like that going on.
Slot says it's not superior to traditional aesthetic and lifestyle. Well, you do know what the point of being able to expand off the planet is, right? So we don't all die here.
Yeah, because eventually, if we stay here, I mean, it's a matter of inevitability. Eventually, the human race will die.
We owe it
and
to our
everything.
children to work for the expansion of our people off the planet.
Not only that, but we owe it to, and this is why I liked making the video about Mass Effect. We do owe it to all biological forms of life on Earth. I mean, that's what was so interesting about Mass Effect, because technically, you would have more of an evolutionary origin in biology. You would have more genetic similarity with a cricket from Earth than you would an Asari from, what was the planet? And that's what was so weird. You going around fucking all of these aliens was literally more degenerate than you fucking a horse.
Well, I'm not going to go over there. But Nume says company towns? He's never heard of company towns. That's pretty surprising. So, at points in America's history, you had a concept of a company town where basically, imagine out in functionally the middle of nowhere. They're going to build something like a mine. So the company will go to build the mine, but then the company, there also needs to be supporting infrastructure for the people, right? There needs to be stores so they can buy food, right? There needs to be ways to transport goods there. Clothes. So
Churches.
The company will do a lot of that. The company will create a company store. And you've had various points where the company would be fairly abusive with that, with their little captive market, where the only people you can buy your food from is the company and get your housing and all that. And there was times where it was not quite so abusive. And I know you've been reading about it. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
I would say that one of the factors in making those models more abusive was, not coincidentally during this era, from the 1880s to the 1920s, we had these huge influxes of immigration.
Yeah.
And when you flood the labor market, it gives these companies more power to depress. Well, it's not even giving them power to depress your wages. That it just happens. Your labor is not worth as much.
Right.
And so this is what drives me nuts about these people. It's just and a lot of nativists at the time understood this, and they said, it's why they wanted to implement a literacy test. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of labor unions were all about implementing the literacy test, and they were all about the Dillingham Commission and the 1924 Immigration Act and all that, because it gave American workers more power over the value of their labor. When you have a bunch of Eastern Europeans and Southern Europeans, or any Europeans coming in who are illiterate and because of steam shipping prices being such that it was very, very inexpensive for them to just come in droves, they bulk up in the cities. You know, this all causes problems. So a lot of the times, these industrial models became exploitative, precisely because there were these giant influxes of immigration and a depressing of wages via the labor, and an increase in labor. And you know, this is what, and it's like we haven't gotten past this issue at all. I mean, there are still idiots today who are my $15 minimum wage or my $18 minimum wage, but open borders.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just like like the number of they're just obsessed with the dollar value. It's just like, you know.
Good luck.
I mean, you do realize that once upon a time you could pay like a quarter and go see a movie. Like, it's not.
Well, I mean,
the number.
we used to use fractions of pennies. You'd pay for things with a half penny. You know, we had things smaller than 1 cent. we had units of denomination that
now
low.
a penny's worthless.
Yeah, now they keep talking about trying to remove the penny because a penny is harder to manufacture and is hardly useful. So everything could just be rounded to the nearest nickel, or if it's done electronically, could be rounded to the cent. But you know, you can't ever pull out a cent, right, of actual like physical currency. You write a check for a cent, but yeah. Lovester says, why stop at mammoths? Bring back all the Ice Age animals for the hunting trips with the boys. Well, I'd say, you know, other than the mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger, I mean, what do you really want to hunt?
I don't know, man. If you look into fauna from back then, there's a lot of really interesting stuff. I'm not like one of those people who's like into trophy hunting. Like, I'm not like, I don't want to bring back extinct species so I can hunt them. Like, I mean, I would be interested in the experience of like hunting a mammoth because of the historical impact it had on us. But like, you know, I don't want to bring back a saber-toothed tiger so I can fucking mount its head on the wall. Like, you know, like you know. But that said, there were a lot of really interesting animals back then that would be, well, in some ways, I don't know. You might want to think about this. It might be cruel to bring these animals back in some sense because we don't have the exact environmental conditions, like, and we don't know, we don't know how to raise them.
If fighting bugs
We don't know.
the best way to make a living.
Yeah, besides, it wouldn't be here on Earth. It would be on a space habitat. So we wouldn't be recreating modern Earth conditions. We'd be recreating their conditions.
No flares ready.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know how confident we are that we could really recreate exactly the conditions that they lived under. Like,
I think we could get close enough. I mean, they had a range of, you know, that they lived in. So it's not like they lived in one condition, right? They lived in a range of conditions. We can estimate something that likely exists within that range. And they'll be happy enough there. Well, until we eat 'em.
What I'm saying is, you know, it's like, can you have an elephant mother raise a woolly mammoth offspring? Like, I mean, like, how do you go about getting the cycle going? You know, like if you have to bottle feed some of these animals initially, you know, like, are they gonna have the instinctual drive once they have babies? Are they gonna know exactly what to do? I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how much is imprinted genetically, how much is environmentally learned, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
they'll get there eventually. You know, given a few generations in the wild, they should be able to adjust successfully enough.
You seem pretty confident.
Yeah. I am. All right. Emu says we can tame triceratops and use them as snowplows. You know, it's interesting when you look at the history. You know, when people think of dinosaurs, they think of like, oh, if you go back, there was a time, and then the dinosaurs evolved, and then you had all the dinosaurs, and then all the dinosaurs died, right? But
A swarm of Macteras heading your
like
way.
for example,
Contact
I'm
imminent.
not sure about the Triceratops, but like one of my favorites, the Stegosaurus, right? And one of like, let's say, one of the most well-known, which would be the T-Rex. I mean, there was like tens of millions of years after the Stegosaurus was extinct before the T-Rex showed up.
Yeah.
It's actually shocking to learn about the actual timescales involved in some of this stuff. I mean, people are thinking Jurassic Park, like you're gonna show up and see all these different things all at once. And a lot of the times, they just didn't exist at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know.
Uh-oh.
I mean, that's the thing too. Like Jurassic Park, bringing that all around. Oh boy.
I'm gonna
we
switch
done?
over to the thing. I'm gonna switch my things up after this. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, like I don't know if you want to bring back all these animals at the same time.
No. Well, I
And
mean,
have
we don't
them
have to put them all
cohabitate
in
the
the same
same-
place.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't have them. Like you can't necessarily have a Stegosaurus and a T-Rex cohabitate the same environment. Like, I mean, maybe those two animals could, but you can't just assume that the entire ecosystem of each period can overlap.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Nume says, do you know what a dinosaur with
I feel like-
500 teeth is
I feel
called?
like shit.
No?
Consider an easier mission.
Osaka says, chickens are descendants of some of the dinosaurs. Yeah,
Yeah.
all birds are.
Birds in general.
Birds.
Bird is the. I had to.
hmm.
Just had to.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I'm sorry.
As you should be. Well, what's this? Grow flares stronger. Oh. Elemental. Bug thing. Could do that. Do like resupplier though.
Yeah, reading about the labor movements from the 1880s to the 1920s is just like there were all these race riots and all these, not even like, there were white versus black labor riots, and then but there were also like different white ethnic groups like Irish versus Italian riots. Like, so the whole idea in BioShock Infinite that you're gonna have like Finkton and Shantytown where the blacks are gonna work, they're gonna work under the Vox Populi, under this woke black woman, and to overcome. It's just like no. I mean, the Irish were an ethnic bloc, and they were a well-established ethnic bloc. What I have some interesting stats I could pull up here in a second, but you know, by the year 1900, Irish Americans were very, very well established in the United States, and they were something like 13% of the labor pool, but comprised something like they were 1/13 of the labor pool, but comprised like over like a sixth of like this whole list of like skilled and semi-skilled labor forces. In some instances, they were like a third of our plumbers. So the idea like that's pushed in BioShock Infinite, whereby like the Irish are like these absolutely destitute, illiterate people who had no representation. I mean, like we had all these Irish senators by then. It's just ridiculous, and they didn't get along with black people. They just didn't. Okay, like they didn't let black people into their labor unions. There was no pan-racial labor movement in 1912, and there was no. There were some really, really silly attempts at them, but like, I mean, again, this depending on what writer you go to, what movie you watch, what documentary you see, people like will choose what they want to focus on and what narrative they want to drive. But if you look at the overall aggregate trend, the idea of any kind of pan-racial labor movement in the early 20th century is just non-existent. Like, you know, it just didn't happen.
Right.
You know,
Well, and it's not going to happen.
African American. Well, real quick, African Americans in a lot of cases, I mean, they were migrating up from the South, and they were used as strike breakers to break up Irish and other white labor unions.
Yeah.
And they were used to break up strikes, and you know, and there's a word that blacks in Chicago would use to refer to the Irish that I'm not going to repeat here, but it was green, followed by the word. You know, so it's not like these groups. I mean, again, it's just silly.
Yeah, well, and it's not going to happen. This sort of pan-racial labor movement that you'll hear some sort of goofy socialist talk about. And you can just look at the Amazon leak document. The Amazon leak document where they say, like, hey, listen, we can use, where they measure diversity because it helps prevent unionization, right? It's, you know, we're introducing ethnic diversity into the labor market is a way to stop people from organizing.
But yeah, like, and labor historians, there are a couple labor historians who look at this era that we're talking about right now, you know, 1880s to 1920s, and they're honest about it. But most of them, like, have this very weird, like, post-World War II, semi-Marxist, class-based, like, ethnic divisions were, like, a capitalist invention, and it's just like, oh my god, like, I don't know how anybody can think that. Like, you know, they just, people keep starting from this basic premise that, ethnic conflict was invented by capitalism. That, like, people had collective genetic interests, and, you know, they competed over, like, it makes total sense that people would come from Ireland, establish themselves in the United States, and then compete to some extent with even other European ethnies within the United States over labor, because they have collective genetic interests. If you're from Ireland and someone else is from Ireland within the last couple of generations, like, you have a common genetic interest that other people don't with you. You know, you should, and it's just like, it just drives me up the wall. And,
I mean,
this whole idea too that, like, the Irish were black. I mean, oh my god, like, I'm not gonna get into that.
So,
Especially for all these bugs that we have to eat.
yeah. Gotta finish your plate or there'll be no dessert. But, ooh, bunch of stuff. When it comes
you know,
to
during World War, like, before right before the outbreak of World War I, and during World War I, oh boy, I'm gonna get irradiated to death here. You know, you and I have talked about that particular World War I anti-German propaganda poster all the time that shows the Germans as, like, this big gorilla, this big King Kong type thing. It's just like, does anybody look at that and seriously consider that, you know, well, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants thought the Germans were actual apes. They didn't think they were white. It's just, no, stop being stupid.
Where is that damn?
It really drives me up the wall.
Mr. G says, how did Italians integrate into U.S. society? Well, I have a video literally called Assimilation is a Joke, and it covers that. So, the biggest thing to know is that European groups, when they came to the United States, largely didn't assimilate. Like, assimilation as we think of it, where someone chooses to start feeling different ways, chooses to change their values to the values of the new country, that's a myth that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Instead, what you see when you say, oh, well, this group that used to be in such conflict with everyone is now not in conflict with everyone. What that is not people choosing to be different, or people becoming different, or people's kids being different from them. It's not that. It is a matter of the people who didn't fit in left. You know?
Yeah.
The only people who actually stayed around long enough during that time where the group now looks like it fits in better, the people didn't fit in left, and the group average changes via re-migration back to their home country.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and you know, again, guys like Madison Grant and other Anglos who established America and other Northwest Europeans, that like they usually saw that there was this demarcation line between Northwest Europeans and Southern and Eastern Europeans. But like if you go back and you read what those Northwest European guys thought, especially in the labor movements, they didn't think that as a group that Eastern Europeans and Southern Europeans were unassimilable into American life. They thought that there would be fewer of them that would assimilate, but really, like, I don't know, especially in the labor guys' minds, the big problem was that we had these regions of Europe were dumping all of their illiterates and all of their problems at the time into American cities. So like you were getting like these huge swaths of like illiterate Italians and illiterate Slavs, like, and they were just bunching up in cities. Whereas years and years ago, you'd get a bunch of Germans, even if they were illiterate or they couldn't speak English properly, or you'd get Scandinavians, and they would move out west and they would set up farms or something like that. And these immigrants weren't really doing that. They were just bulking up in the cities because of industrialization. So, you know, there is a cultural and genetic divide between various regions of Europe, but I think that people have to also take into account that as these giant cities formed and steam engine boats were a thing and travel became really cheap, there was just really no motivation or no system of incentives for these European groups to assimilate. And then the problem with that, though, is once you start recognizing that, people extrapolate too much from that. And they say, well, Africans and East Asians and these other groups, well, they can assimilate too if they have the proper incentives. And it's like, no. And you had a lot of labor guys at the time who recognized that. You had a lot of guys who talked about the Chinese Exclusion Act. And they made a big difference, or they drew a big line. They said that banning the Chinese outright was a good thing. Banning Eastern Europeans and Southern Europeans outright was not a good thing. They wanted to impose a literacy test because they felt that, to some extent, we had an obligation on some level to our European brethren. They just didn't feel that it was right that these countries, quote unquote, dump their problems at the time on the U.S. So it's...
Well, that might be the language they used with it too, but I mean, there's just like, if like any significant change in population has effects on the labor market.
Consequences. Yeah. Well, I mean, even if we hit, like, Germans and Anglo-Saxons are very... Germans and Anglo-Saxons are very, very similar. But if you took the entire Anglo-Saxon population of Great Britain and you just dumped it into Germany, like, there would be problems. It doesn't matter how similar they are. Like, you know, if my entire family moved into your entire family's house, like say your entire extended family lived in one house, and then my entire extended family like moved into your house, there would be problems. Like, it's just, you know, and they would be... The problem is people pick and choose what contributing factors they want to focus on and attribute the problems to. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and they don't want to parse it out, and so, I don't know. It's very annoying. It's very annoying how people historically extrapolate like when people act like, oh, Southern Italians were considered black or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just stupid. Like, no one thought like that.
Right.
And I'm just really tired of it. Like, yes, there are differences between Italians and other groups, but I'm just so tired of people. Like, I'm just so tired of it. I can't stand it.
So
it drives me nuts.
Why get in the hole? Why were you going?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I'm dead.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's unfortunate.
I extrapolated my death. I wonder what's gonna happen when you blow that thing up. Oh, well, it's gonna turn everything to gold. That's why I needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wally!
Well, this is kind of like, you know, this is sort of like, you know, if you go to Mozambique and you open up a bald man's head, you're gonna get gold. You know, it's kind of like the same concept here, right?
So, what I was saying is, you know, at the end of the day, you have consequences for significant changes to the labor market. One of the things I talked about in my video, Economy as a Joke, is that historically, pandemics lead to an increase in wages, right? When there's a pandemic, it's historic European pandemics, of course, killed people. Very tragic. But the upside to that was everyone who survived got paid a lot more, right? Everyone's quality of life went up. You would generally expect, after a pandemic, the average person becomes more wealthy and gets paid more to live. For countries in the West that might not be experiencing pay raises during the pandemic, it's largely due to the mass immigration that's happening at the same time that's used as a tool to depress wages. Right. So, if you care about wages and you care about workers' rights and stuff, you don't import millions of scabs. You know, you don't let the companies who want to import millions of people to come and do it. I mean, you maybe have seen 200 plus companies support the Dreamers Bill and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
because at the end of the day,
they're not doing that because they're good people.
No,
you know,
it does something for their bottom line.
They're bad people. I mean, and this is the grand. This is the. I couldn't do anything about that. I just got. Oh boy. I might have screwed you there.
Got no ammo left. Never surrender.
Get into cover.
All right, where are we at for Nitro? Oh, good.
Supply pods launched. Better stand
Thought we
back.
didn't have enough Nitro stay.
Let me go! Please, shoot it! Resupply is here.
All right, get the resupply whenever you can get it.
Yeah, give me some sugar. Yeah. I'm taking some of the ammo.
Scanners show the waves thinning out. Take out the rest of them stat.
Ooh, a lot of stuff here. Get rid of that. Reload
I mean,
my
and this
tubes.
is, you know, the whole labor thing. I mean, it's. I mean, this is another thing that drove me nuts about looking into Bioshock Infinite and the whole villainization of the 7th Cavalry, the U.S. Army regarding wounded knee Native Americans, in regard to the U.S. and other nations' involvement in China. Because what you see is, in each case, you see a bunch of Native American movements and a bunch of Chinese movements that are very nativist. And they want, like, one of the big things that the Yihu Chuan, or Fists of Harmonious Righteousness, or something like that. The Boxers, that's what they were called. Yihu Chuan? Yihu Chuan? I think I'm doing it right.
Can't carry anymore.
They, a lot of the peasants were really upset about all this,
No more room. Time for
like the advent of Western steam engines and steamboats and all this technology coming in and displacing them and taking their jobs away. I mean, literally, a lot of these people were like, they took our job. They took our jobs. You know, like they were like the Chinese version of that. And yet, it's just amazing to see all these like white academics and all these other people and non-white academics just be able to endlessly sympathize with this xenophobic nativist movement within China, which in some ways I can sympathize with, but not be able to reciprocate that to us.
Yeah.
Like, it's just.
So when a workers' movement happens with white people in a white country, they sort of like, meh. When it happens with a non-white in a non-white country, they're like, oh wow, that's so righteous for that workers' movement, you know?
You try?
You know, they were really trying to resist the evil white man, and that's what this is. It's because they think we're evil, right? It's because these people are indoctrinated in the anti-white narrative.
Well, I mean, like they like with the Boxer Rebellion, like they talk about all these things that you know. I mean, one in BioShock, they really act like it was just like this American involvement. Again, there were 8 different nations involved.
Are you not mining?
In China. Sorry.
All you have to do is hold right click.
I know.
Jesus
I know.
Christ! I'm doing the whole ball alone.
Well,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God!
I'm sorry.
I'm full. Where's Smalley?
It's gonna take forever. I thought you were doing the floor the whole time.
No, I wasn't. I don't know what I was thinking.
I need to deposit in the mule.
I was thinking about the abyss of harmonious righteousness.
Oh my goodness.
Inventory is full.
Don't got room for more.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, if you read about
can't
what
carry
the Boxer Rebellion's nativist xenophobic movement did, I mean, like, they're the ones who massacred most of their own people. Like, Americans weren't going around massacring
Heading to the mule.
Chinese locals. You know, like, you can make the case that Western technology made locals lose jobs
That's
or
it.
whatever
Back
to some extent. You know, I think it's overplayed, but
Bags full. Can't carry anymore.
yeah, I mean, and the kinds of things that these boxers did to locals are nasty. Very, very, very nasty. I mean, we're talking about burning people alive, like all kinds of really, really nasty, morbid stuff. And the fact of the matter is, when you get into Plains Indian culture, you get into a lot of really nasty stuff that people did. I mean, one of the common things that U.S. troops, basically a maxim of the U.S. cavalry was save a bullet for yourself, because do not let yourself be captured alive. Do not.
No more room. Time
You know,
for deposit.
at Custer's last stand, there was a guy who, well, first off, you know, we don't know exactly what happened, because literally, like, Custer's detachment was completely wiped out. But one of the first things they did once they realized they were surrounded was they shot all their horses. Like, they knew that they were screwed. So they shot all their horses and used them for cover. One of the guys who rode out, I forget what his rank, I think he was a corporal, but the Indians said after the fact that they thought that this guy was going to get away, and so they gave up and they weren't going to chase him. But this guy was so scared and so convinced that he wasn't going to get away that he shot himself in the head. He shot himself in the head, and he would have gotten away.
I'm totally loaded.
So, I mean, this is something that U.S. troops did a lot. They would kill themselves a lot to avoid getting captured. Because, I mean, these people would scalp you alive. They would heat up wagon tires until they were red hot, and then they would roll them across your exposed entrails. I mean, these people did nasty, nasty things.
Lots.
They did nasty things to people who
pick people
did,
up.
like, I'm getting a lot of frame rate drops here too.
Well, where is... Okay.
God, I'm getting massive frame rate drops here, and I don't know why.
Watch it.
Am I getting massive frame rate drops because I'm shooting you?
Maybe.
I certainly deserve them. Yeah, I think something's up with my connection because I keep dying and I can't. I don't know.
Got the sand shot.
Well,
One of the interesting things I found out about the Boxer Rebellion was that in the legation quarter, and for people who don't know, legations were basically like the equivalent of embassies back in the day, and instead of having an ambassador, you'd have a minister. So when the Chinese imperial troops and the local boxers laid siege to the legation quarter, it would basically be like all of like several foreign nations' embassies, you know, being waged war upon. Like, I mean, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. They were trying to wipe these people. They were trying to wipe our people out. But there were a lot of Chinese Christian converts who took refuge in the legation quarter, and in one area called the Fu, Japanese troops actually protected some 3,000, almost 3,000 Chinese converts against Chinese people trying to kill them. I mean, which is just fascinating, because 5 years prior, there had been the Sino-Japan War. And, you know, historically speaking, the Japanese and the Chinese have not gotten along. Yet you have, like, this... I mean, you could have had this... Bioshock and other people could have this amazing story of these Japanese troops risking their lives to protect Chinese people. You know? But they're not going to do that. Oh, no. Oh, no. We're gonna villainize the white man. You know? Like, that's all we're going to focus on here. It's just incredible.
Max full. Can't carry anymore.
Yeah. Bullshit stuff.
I mean, the levels of bullshit are just endless. In
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Like,
Hey guys, would it be disruptive if I were to join?
No. Oof. That was a bummer. Okay. Well.
oh boy, where are you at?
No time for a lie down.
I can't see
I'm
where.
still
Okay,
scoped
I see.
here.
Shield charge.
It's hard to find the way up.
You're just gonna dig.
Yeah.
One shot
I
per
can
sand,
dig.
so.
I can dig that.
Die, creep!
There we go.
I have to make a deposit.
Be right back. I have to get my son situated, and so you guys are still finishing the map you're on now, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So one of the things that I want to talk about today was planetary versus space colonies. You know, I feel like everyone, when they first think about colonies, they're always thinking about planetary colonies. You know, they're thinking like, let's colonize Mars, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. In terms of space, planetary colonies, you know, one of the big annoying things about Earth is the atmosphere and all the gravity.
Wolf inbound.
Like, sending rockets up really kind of stinks, you know? They're incredibly expensive, very hard to do. Imagine if you were near weightless, right? Imagine if you were in space and you just had another space colony. The amount of effort it would take to get from one colony to the other would be a slight push, right? And then you just sort of float over there, right? And the harder you push, the faster you float over there, but also the more energy it'll take to stop you, right? I'm not super, like, you know, so like Elon Musk is all like, you know, Mars, right? It's all about Mars, which is fine. But, there we go. Get this deposited.
Where do all these minerals go?
But, I'm not sure if it's that great of an idea to go to Mars. How are you on ammo, Krogan? Why don't you get that?
Can I get some attention?
I don't know if Elon Musk has. I assume.
Direct intercept course.
Oh, good. There's
Get
no
ready.
storm. I assume Elon has gone through a bunch of technical experts, right, to determine that Mars really is the best way to go. But my gut has always said, you know, don't bother, right? Just build space colonies. And that's what is most efficient in the long run anyway. Space colonies. Because, I mean, if you were to, instead of building on Mars, if you were to disassemble Mars, take Mars apart, and build space colonies out of the equivalent amount of mass as Mars, right? Then you would end up with something many times Earth's surface area to live on for people. Ooh, a lot of stuff here.
Oh, it actually let me into this map, or is this a new map?
What's your question?
Same map. Same map. We're playing the same map.
Oh, I didn't realize I could join mid-stream.
Nume says Elon Musk is a scam. He sucks government subsidies.
That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest.
I mean, he's heavily subsidized. I mean, like, his business model is mostly just making money off the government. That being said, that's not like it's not the worst thing in the world right off the bat. You know, like, that's not good enough reason to dislike it, in my view. I mean, so when it comes to any sort of good or service that otherwise we would be relying on foreign manufacturers for, there's like an interest on our part to try and incentivize domestic manufacturers, including through subsidies, right?
Well, this was like I've been reading through there was a joint Senate.
You do not just waste all your ammo shooting it in the face.
Well,
you gotta dig.
I'm kind of stuck here. I'm gonna die because
dig.
Yeah, dig where? I mean, like.
Yeah, everything is one hit.
Well, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I digged.
You could have gotten out.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever. I mean, you guys ran away.
So, Schmerling says, have you played any space sims or space colony builders? I played... there's a RTS game that's in space. I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with space, per se, right? I forget the name of it.
Is it Homeworld?
Is that it?
I don't know. I've played Homeworld. There's Alpha Centauri, and there's Homeworld, and there's like Europa Universalis stuff. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I don't know about those, but yeah, I played one where it's like a business thing. It's business RTS in space. I've done that. But I've played EVE Online. I've played a little bit of that one game, you know? Elite Dangerous? So I played that.
Sorry, but something I was gonna say was I've been reading through. In 1876, there was a Senate committee hearing on the effects of Chinese immigration into California, and I'm reading through it, and it's like over 1,000 pages, so it's gonna take me forever. But they talk with the Central Pacific Railroad barons about their hiring practices for Chinese laborers, and I mean they outright say that they hire them basically to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And
Friendly says Off-World Trading Company. Yeah, that's it.
So, like, a lot of the importation of a lot of the problems we're having today with immigration, like, are things that we've gone through before. It's just that you know, back then, I mean, it's very interesting to read through that Senate committee hearing, because the senators are very hostile to the railroad barons. They kept asking them over and over again, like, well, why couldn't you hire white laborers? Why couldn't you import white laborers from the East Coast or do this or that? And like, it's just very interesting because you're not going to see anything like that today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the paradigm has changed such that, like, we have nobody on our side. I mean, these guys were pretty upset with the hiring practices, and
well, and you still see that in other countries, right? I mean, if it's in most other serious countries, there's pretty strict requirements on, hey, why didn't you hire someone from here? You pulled someone from out of the country, you pulled someone from out of our ethne, you know. you're in Israel, this person's not a Jew, this person's not an Israeli, why are you hiring them? Are you really telling me you couldn't find anyone here? Come on. You know, that kind of stuff. That all gets talked about. We do have some of that talk here, but it's really superficial now, right? It's not like super like rigorous. They're not really coming down hard on you. They'll use some of the language, but you can hire whoever you want.
That trimmer snakeoid thing grabbed me.
That's what I was going to talk about with Elon Musk. I mean, a lot of people are like, Elon Musk won't hire anybody but Americans, and they feel like that. Like, one side of the argument or one side of the debate criticizes him for that, and the other praises him, and it's just like they're both wrong. The only reason why he doesn't do it is because at this point in time, because of security reasons, security requirements, he can only hire people who have American citizenship, I believe, for at least for SpaceX. Tesla, he can hire whoever he wants.
Yeah.
But you know, he would hire foreigners in a minute.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
he does not have some kind of principled scruple about, you know, hiring foreigners.
Well, he's not like dedicatedly loyal. I mean, you don't hear him talking about
he wasn't even born in the
South
U.S. So, I
Africa.
mean, he's like, yeah. I mean, he's not only is he not loyal to Americans, but he's not loyal to the South African Boers or the white South Africans. I mean, he could do all kinds of things for white South Africans. He doesn't do shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
If you think about the dynamic, whether it be importing Chinese labor in the 1870s or what's happening now, basically it makes you realize, like, hey, if there's people somewhere on the planet, even if they're on the other side of the planet, at least once you're in the age of contact and everything between everybody, if they're having a bazillion kids, that's going to have consequences for me in my country, because unless there's some really strict controls in place, and those always tend to break down over time. But, like, you know, you end up with a situation where either they're going to bring those people over there, or they're going to have them produce stuff cheaply over there. Like, quantity of people leads to abusive situations they can take advantage of. Like,
well, I mean, again, one of the reasons why the Chinese could afford to work for less, and they weren't forced to work for less. You know, they came over to the United States and they did what they did because it was still, after everything considered, it was advantageous for them to travel across the Pacific Ocean and work for less in the United States because of our labor market, you know, and they sent all their gold back. And that's something I'm going to try to include in the video. In the Senate committee hearing, they outright say that all the Chinese laborers, they sent all of their money back to China. All of the money got funneled out of the U.S. into the Chinese economy. You know, like, are we all dead? We're all dead. Who's not?
You can see in the lower left. Osaka says it could be worse. Jupiter, for example, has no solid surface. There are colossal storms, huge pressure and gravity. Yeah, I mean, that being said, we would never be on, like, there's no surface, so we wouldn't be on the surface.
I've heard recently that there is a surface.
I mean, there might be, yeah, I mean, you may go from gas to solid matter, but there's no, like, surface for us.
Right.
that's just what they want you to think, man.
Anyway, at the surface, so we're not going there. But we could potentially have things on Jovian moons, or what's it called? We could potentially have things floating in the atmosphere. Oh god. So KNAT says you've played Elite Dangerous. I really liked the stuff you can do in that game. Yeah, it was all right. Oh, so Krogan's flying around, huh?
Yeah, we're done.
No, all right, here.
He's
I mean, we're relying on, because Krogan and I have been here for a long time, and we've used all our ammo. I mean, we're relying on Kale and Slots to kill this stuff.
My ammo's gone too.
Oh.
I've been killing everything I could with it.
So, Yeah. Well,
I really don't care whether we win or lose. I'm having a better time talking about various stuff than I am winning.
yeah, one of the things I like to do on EVE Online was scan. It's decent at scanning. They made scanning way easier than it used to be. Scanning used to be very... Well, it took a long time, unless you knew what you were doing. And then they made it easier, and now everyone's a little bit faster at scanning in EVE Online. If anyone has tried scanning in EVE Online, personally I enjoy it. It's not unlike Celestial Navigation for sailboats.
Mission selected and locked in.
But,
Time to drop pod.
you know, one of the things I've thought about a lot is interstellar colonies, you know? I've heard various people propose ways where we could colonize the stars and the galaxies. And, you know, one of the ways is with... You take a ship, right? And you got a ton of people on it, ton of resources. You bring it to a new star system, you stop there, you sit there for a little bit, establish a colony. The people who want to stay, and the people who want to leave go and colonize the next one. And so it's like this little machine that plants seeds, star system by star system, as you go and go and go. That being said, what strikes me immediately is seems like that's a pretty drastic selective pressure, right?
Well, you'd obviously have to have a procedure before you move on to the next star where you've made sure your colonists are the right level of diversity. You know, you got enough POC colonists and whatnot.
No, we have to decolonize everything. You've completely gone off the rails, embargo. Okay, the goal right now is to decolonize everything because colonization is a white man's concept. It's a concept of whiteness. Okay.
Yeah.
It is one is unable to divorce the concept from the concept of whiteness, and so you know we even have to decolonize the French language, you know, and the English language, and you know all of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna colonize the galaxy. So like what the selective pressure though is like significant, right? If you're like, if some people find the idea of staying there nice and some people find the idea of not staying there, would find the idea of settling down like, you know, objectionable.
Okay, team.
How many star systems can you go to until eventually no one wants to get off the initial ship, right?
And maintain the drill dozer as it makes its way there.
All right, Pale,
Get ready.
jump around the ceiling, grab stuff. Ooh, oh, we gotta kill the Fester fleas, so kill the fleas.
Clear the landing zone,
So would
team.
there be like
Drill dozer
Section
coming
8
in.
housing on Jupiter?
Yeah, not if I can do anything about it. KNAT says you're talking about cosmic signature scanning. Yeah, scanning, probe scanning. I mean, I don't know what else you would think of. I mean, in terms of like a thing to do, like, oh, this is a thing that I'm doing. I mean, it's not like it's like descanning or something would be like an activity of its own. But Commander says on Trovo, your thoughts on using space balloons to transport supplies into space for further space colonization. So you mean off of Earth into, you know, onto the edge of Earth's atmosphere using large helium balloons? Something like that? Or
Yeah.
hydrogen balloons? I mean, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know exactly where that falls on the practicality scale. I mean, I know that rockets are not great. I don't know if that's better or how much better, because I mean, like, obviously,
I don't
if
know
you start
a whole lot
to
about that, but
wanna
it does
move
seem like
heavy
it would be more
things.
feasible.
you want to move heavy
But,
things, I mean, like, that might
Let's
be
get this
really...
mission rolling.
May
Close
require
the
some pretty damn
operational
serious
and homing
balloons.
in on the
Yeah,
Hearthstone.
that's true.
My thinking is that we could use the solar system as a natural way to solve racial conflict by giving each racial group their own planet, so that we don't have to keep. And I mean, obviously, with melanin and Africa as their origin, blacks would be uniquely suited to colonize the sun.
You're gonna have to bring that up with
a
Tariq
lot of
Nasheed.
racial and ethnic conflicts are about resources. And so, I mean, you really saw this crop up in the U.S. with different ethnic groups coming to the U.S. and competing over labor markets and resources and all that. So it would be very interesting to see if space technology would alleviate ethnic conflict, or had the potential to alleviate ethnic conflict.
We got a lot of stuff here. Put up these.
It's funny how many
sentries.
fictional future things, whether it be like Total Recall or that recent show, The Expanse. I mean, I've seen it in other places too. How many times they've done the whole theme of like Earth are the assholes and they're like oppressing the other planets and they want to kind of like invade Mars for resources and Mars broke off and stuff. It seems like kind of just an extension of the hatred of like our colonial past and the hatred of ourselves and stuff. It's like, let's do a future sci-fi thing.
Back
where
up,
we
get away,
hate
get away, get away.
How's it going, Phil?
I kicked serious ass. Unfortunately, it just included my own.
Have a bullet in the face!
Found some nitra!
Emu says, which African nation said they would send a rocket to the sun by going at nighttime? Sounds more like a meme and less like an actual thing. It sounds like if you've ever heard the thing where it's like, who would win, a trillion lions or the sun? And then someone's like, it would be the sun, but only unless the lions win at night. You know, that kind of thing.
Hope the bandage stays on.
What's that purple stuff? Are we trying to get it?
Oil shale?
There is nitro over here!
No, the stuff to the right of it. Let's see, I think I
You're gonna have to ping it.
I'm trying.
Well, I need to get Molly.
Maybe it's
Where's
not.
Molly? There you are,
Oh,
Molly.
there are eyeballs in there, dude.
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably some sort of creepy
I'm
thing.
not one of
but-
them, you knobhead.
It's just part of the... Where are we?
The drill dozer has
Where are we?
stopped. Fuel canisters are all dry as a
Radioactive
bone.
exclusion
Refill
zone?
them, and we will
Does
have
it only
this show
happen
on the
here?
road again soon.
That's part of the aesthetics.
Lead
I
down!
want to live in an exclusion zone.
Gotta be radioactive.
Speed limit set to slow.
Mr. G, I really don't know much about Warhammer 40. At least not from like a lore perspective. I know the company that makes it,
Gotta protect the
Games
radar.
Workshop, has posted some pro-diversity stuff.
Yeah, they're done. They're done, guys.
So I mean, like, I hope
company.
you're not giving them money. That's what I would say
Yeah.
about Warhammer, right?
Is there anybody able to make a platform under this nitra up here?
Yeah, ping it.
Anyone needs it? There's nitro.
We have an oppressor.
Find the nitro.
Fine. 1 second. Where the hell is it? Oh,
We've got at least 4 oppressors here.
Gotta go. Yeah! We're down!
Thank you for platforming me.
The
all
drill
good.
dozer is under attack. Get it fixed up before we lose it.
Did you guys see that Brett Weinstein, he's getting like YouTube videos taken down and he's getting all butthurt by it?
oh really?
Yeah, it was pretty funny because it's just, and then Devin Stack was just like, and then they came for me and no one cared.
Exactly.
I mean, because it's just like he's like.
Prepare
he's
the
just
drill
like,
dozer.
Oh boy. I'm down. Yeah, he's like. He kept citing all these stats like, oh, the video had this many likes and it only had this many dislikes and YouTube took it down. It's just like
The drill
you
dozer
going?
has just
Okay.
suffered permanent damage.
You know,
Keep
this
that
has
thing
happened to
running
all of
at
us.
any cost.
Yeah,
You know?
Take it like this.
exactly.
He put the wine in Weinstein.
Like, what's that ContraPoints was bitching about something similar.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, get up and shield. Let's go do the things. Mr. G says, I don't give money to any media. That's good. Unfortunately, I still got friends that have Netflix, and I can't convince them to stop.
Oh my God, that is
so they're
like,
pedophiles, is what
dude.
you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, like, Netflix is, you know, I might say that is my #1 thing that I want people to stop funding.
Platform.
You know.
Certainly, very difficult to excuse funding something like Netflix.
Like, that's something that I would say if you're at the dinner table with family and friends and all that, like, that's worth having a fight and storming out over. Like, I think it's that important. Like, yeah, like Netflix is intolerable in my view.
Platform.
Word. Well, like with that, what was it called? Big Mouth? Was that on there?
Platform's place.
Yeah, I believe that's on there.
Yeah.
I've
And those
always
are some
thought
just
it would
nasty
be.
people.
I really wanted to find like videos of that show, like a whole episode. I wanted to do like a breakdown of that for the channel, but I don't know. They got it on lockdown. I didn't see any easily available like streaming sites with it online.
I could probably find you something.
Because I thought it would be good to
Remind me
like,
later.
you know, remove the laugh track and just say what the jokes are, right? Like something I talked about on my Telegram once was like, don't make bedpost jokes, because what's going to happen is some prosecutor is going to read it with a very solemn face in front of a jury, and it's not going to sound very funny. It's not going to sound like a joke at all, right? Well, that's what I wanted to do to their show. Like, well, in this joke, the 7-year-old talks about his whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, like, read it as if it wasn't a joke and just say it for real.
They'd end up pulling down
There
your
you go,
channel
Pale.
over that, even though you were clearly
I found
criticizing
them
it, they would like act like they didn't understand that.
I wouldn't be making the jokes from my perspective. I'd be telling the jokes. I wouldn't be retelling the jokes. I'd be saying what the jokes
The
are.
drill dozer is fueled and ready
But,
to go.
I know, but they would still get you. Like,
no.
Hang on, supplies are on the way. Here
Make
we
sure you
go.
get the
Drill
thing
dozer
here.
setting off for the Umaran Heartstone.
which thing?
So,
Oh, Resupply.
Emu says, I had a fight over Netflix with my ex. I wish I had explained it better, but she didn't understand why I was so averse to it. Yeah. You might have to... Well, that's why I think having a video like what I was thinking of would be helpful. Be like, this is what you're funding. This is what Netflix does. You know?
Also, we got an
Well,
It's
the
cuties,
sin of what
it's
I'm-
Big Mouth, it's the abuse of children, it's...
Oh, that's right, they do cuties too.
Yeah.
They're doing this Van Damme thing, which, you know, different type of sin, but definitely looking pretty crappy. And then just the other day, they had a trailer for a new He-Man series. I think it's like
Oh,
a limited
God.
one. And, well, here's the thing. The trailer didn't look too bad. It actually looked like it was being pretty true. Like, it was actually refreshingly... Yeah, you didn't see like
He
a
had the
bunch-
German Iron Cross on his chest.
I think so. Yeah, and I don't think there were any like race swaps that I saw or anything like that. So it's actually kind of refreshing. You know, looked kind of good. But by the standards of like, you know, Bugman, overgrown man-child stuff.
Now,
you know,
this
that
is
we-
Netflix?
Yeah, yeah.
Still
So,
not
but here's-
supporting it. Still not
Oh, I know,
supporting it.
I know. But here's the thing. So then I saw a YouTube channel today, and I don't know if they're right about this, but they said based on like a synopsis that they had read of it and who was involved and some hints in the trailer if you look at it the right way. And I don't know if they're right about this, but they think that they're going to pull like a Last of Us Part 2 with this and have it become very Tila-centric and He-Man like take a back seat in his own show, which would not surprise me at all. You know? Again, these are minor things. It's all like man-child stuff to be thinking about. But you know, hey, I'm going to take any opportunity I can to criticize these people for crapping on things.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Nitro.
Found some nitro.
All right. Anything else in this room? Nothing? All right. Sperling says, did you see the cast for the new Resident Evil movie?
I
It's
did.
gonna be bad. I
did.
haven't seen it.
Stop shooting, you pointy early.
I've never been big on movies, you know? Like, I saw someone on Twitter saying something about, like, listing their favorite 100 movies. I don't know if I've watched 100 movies. I mean,
I
used to
can't
be into
watch or
movies and
consume
not just
anything anymore, man. I mean, like, I'm at the point where, like, I see it in everything. And
Because it is in everything.
people will say, "Oh, you're too much now, Krogan. You know, you're just getting carried away." It's like, no, I'm not. Like, you know, you're just not there.
Getting on my nerves.
Okay,
The drill dozer is ready
know,
to start the extraction of the Umbran
you
Heartstone.
have an addiction
Awaiting your call,
to
team.
garbage, and you know, you're just convincing yourself that it's not really that bad. I can still consume my
Guys,
heroin.
we're blind. Look over here. Platform.
Well, for the sake of argument, what if we were to find out that every dude, even if it's a bunch of white guys, every dude who made this game right here, and we've all paid for this game,
Supplies
obviously.
are on the way.
What
Yeah.
if we were to find out that every one of them was an enormous shitlip, and by the way, that's not improbable at all, you know?
No, it's not.
So, I mean, like,
Roger that.
we would have at
Supplies
that
are
point
coming.
exposed ourselves as having put money in the pockets of, like, some
Time to
huge shitlips.
restock.
Now, I personally, I think the world at this point is, my feeling on it would be the world is so
Embargo's
fucking-
already addressed that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a matter of like, okay, if you look at the output of this game, like the
Yeah,
net
what's
effect
actually
of
in
this
the game,
game,
yeah.
the net effect of this game it's a net positive in the end because of what it promotes.
Yeah.
Platform.
Or at least what
That's
it
how you have
doesn't
to look at it.
promote, right?
No, I mean, I would say in terms of what it promotes. I mean, like, you know, like.
Sentry armed.
masculine
there's some-
men working
Yeah.
hard masculine jobs, being celebrated for it, looking cool. I mean,
And
this is a
forcefully
lot
going
different than
to-
a lot of the other
Getting more
crap.
ammo.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think, I don't know, the line.
Getting
I
more
think there's a
ammo.
lot of people who find themselves in
Extraction
situations
commencing.
where
Drill dozer
they
running
have
at
so
full
many
steam.
normies
Stay alert, team.
in their
The
orbit
noise and
within their
vibrations are
family and stuff
attracting
that
the
like
bugs.
they end up exposed to a lot of stuff that they might not
Swarm
normally
detected. Keep the drill
seek
dozer
out on their
operational
own.
at
And I
all
think there's a lot of
costs.
people who draw a different line in the sand about what they're willing to put money toward and stuff. I would agree that, you know, there's no real way to justify a Netflix subscription or really any of the subscriptions to, you know, Disney Plus, all that kind of stuff. Probably all of those are more than paused enough to have them on the other line in the sand, other side of the line in the sand. Yeah, if somebody still gets some enjoyment out of like Godzilla versus King Kong and stuff like that comes out that has like some pause in it, but is not just like overwhelmingly paused.
I want to
wouldn't-
destroy Hollywood.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like, I want to deny them every dollar I can. I don't want Hollywood to exist. I want it to go under.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's certainly ways to
The
view
dozer's
these
just
things
broken through
without
the
money
crust of the
being
Umbran.
involved. Like if you're walking.
All right, you
past
don't have to
that
shoot the
line
rocks.
on the TV.
Oh, we don't have to shoot the rocks?
No. See the platforms I've got above the thing?
Ah.
Oh, did they hit the platform and go up?
Yeah, they hit the platforms, they create a hole in the platforms, and I plug the hole again. So you just need to be down there hitting bugs and repairing the dozer, because the bugs are still hitting it, right? It's half health now.
What's the? How do I repair again?
You gotta, so it's the right side?
Oh, okay. You gotta go to a certain portion of it.
Yeah. when you look at the diagram in the upper right of the dozer, you can see the part that receives damage right now is the right side, and that's where you'll have to stand to repair it.
Platform up.
Don't fear the repair.
All right, so then all my platforms will get cut away now, and then we're done with that section.
Contact. Swarm approaching the drill dozer. Hunker down and load up.
Uh-oh, I got your
50% through,
It's all
team.
good.
Drill dozer is still holding together.
I'm being detained, man.
Swarm! I repeat, swarm!
Yeah, I saw this video of this white mom. I forget what city it was in, but she like was showing the local school council like the books that 5 and 10-year-olds were being exposed to. That was talking about like masturbation and like all this nasty stuff, and you could see that the school board people were getting like uncomfortable about the words she was using, and she like made it like and she was just like, well, these are the words that are in this book for 5-year-olds. Like, you know, what's wrong with you people? And it was just like, you know, there's some things she said toward the end that like I didn't appreciate, but like overall it was just like, I'm really glad that this woman's getting angry. You know, because you should be angry about all this. It's disgusting.
Well, I mean, she's a woman who is standing up for her community, standing up for children. She's white, right?
White, redhead.
Yeah, so white, redheaded woman standing up for what she believes is right, trying to protect people. And guess what? People are going to call her a Karen as an insult, right? This is just an anti-white term for a lot of times really good women, right? Slot says she's a great Karen, right? She's a great person. Good.
A great white Karen.
Yeah. Is that like a great white shark?
Yeah.
Great white hope. Did you see the little white teenage girl who was at one of those school council things the other day, going off on
Incoming
white
swarm.
Chinese?
Keep the dozer safe.
No.
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about. I don't know where all we're appearing and what I'm supposed to talk about. But,
I
Yeah,
think
we're
the
at-
T-word's a no-go.
Swarm?
Well,
This
I
is a
meant
big one, team.
people who are transhumanists, those who believe we are headed to a future where robotics and humanity will merge. So she just didn't appreciate having to share bathrooms with people who believe in the technological, what's it called? The singularity. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that singularity.
Oh, we got a
Gravity.
detonator back there. We got a detonator back there.
I'm gonna go towards it. If we can shoot some sacks here.
We don't have to worry about the
Slots
bulldozer
just
anymore, right?
bum rushed it with his face. All right, so the detonator blew up on the other side, so we're safe.
Drill dozer's taking permanent damage. It's barely holding together. Be more careful.
All right, I'm going after slots.
Plasma burster!
Sure. I think we got this. Got hail of repairing, so.
Keep seeing parts of it that look really damaged, but I don't get the repair option on. Is that normal?
The drill
I only
dozer
get the
served
repair
its
So-
option in a couple parts.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta look at the diagram
Deposit it and wrap
where
up
you'll
the
stand to
mission.
repair it, and then the diagram also tells you if you can repair it.
Armor and Heartstone secured.
Okay,
Press the button on
great.
the
So
mule
everyone can
and
get,
we'll send in the
everyone who
drop
hasn't
pod.
gotten 2 resupplies can go grab the last ones, and then press the button.
Excellent. Drop pod inbound.
All right. Well, next we need to talk about, before this ends, we need to talk about, for anyone who doesn't know, the possibility of intergalactic colonization.
Remember that Beastie Boys song?
Intergalactic
Drop
planetary.
pod arrived.
Yeah,
Mules
it
returning
was
to
just a-
LZ.
Well, I don't know if yeah, I
Drop
guess
pod
I could say I
departing in
enjoyed it.
T-minus 5 minutes.
I would hear it from time to time. I always thought it was kind of fun. Then there was Sabotage around that same time, I think.
Brass monkey.
That one was much earlier, I think, right?
I wouldn't know about the exact time frame of the Beastie Boys discography, but something
Aren't
to
they all tribesmen?
I don't know.
I think they are.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I think, I don't know if any of you appreciate my perspective on things. I think part of the reason I have this perspective is because I really got so little Hollywood growing up, right? Like I said, I don't think I've watched 100 movies in my lifetime. So, like, people who list their top 100, it's like, I can't even list 100 that I've ever seen.
Really easy.
I feel like that's been generally helpful. Slots, get in here. Jesus.
I mean, I'm getting attacked.
Yeah, just get away from the wall a little bit. Those swarmers can actually hit you through the wall because I don't know. Problem with the game. Well, I think that's the last round, boys.
Yeah.
Or at least the last full round. We'll talk about stuff. I'll probably bring up paint. So everyone here is aware that the universe is expanding, right? Because that'll be important for this intergalactic conversation.
Is that settled? Like no one debates it anymore?
So everyone knows the universe is expanding right now. And it does appear to be accelerating. It's expanding and accelerating. Now, whether that, you've heard maybe ideas about a big crunch or something like that. So, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Maybe, I think that gets debated and talked about, but not like the universe expanding. All right. So let me grab here. Do I have paint up here somewhere? If I do this. Boink. Aha. Look at that. I don't know why it's the... Oh, here we go. So, here we have the observable universe, right? And then we're going to make some galaxies in it, which will be represented by these four-pointed stars, right? And there's obviously a lot more than what I'm going to put on here. Is this transparent? Boom. Oh no. Where is that thing? There we go. Oh, it's kind of looking like the Subaru logo so far. So we're gonna put ourselves at the center with a 5-pointed star. And everything is moving away from us, right? This is not because we're the center of the galaxy. It's not because we're the center of the universe, but like this exists for everybody. Like if you were over here, your frame would shift like that, and that would be your observable universe, right? So the stuff close to us is moving away, but more slowly. The stuff further away is moving away, but more quickly, and the stuff farthest away is moving the most quickly away. And then there's like stuff out here that's moving ultra quickly away. And really what we mean by moving away is that space is expanding, right? So another way to think of, I think a more accurate way to talk about this is there's a space between our galaxy and this galaxy here, and this space is literally getting bigger, right? This space is growing. Well, if you were to look at the space between this galaxy way out here and our galaxy, that space is growing quickly enough that light can't get to the other side, right? That's the idea. So if light comes across, is trying to come across, every light year it moves during that year, this space grows by more than a light year, right? Growing by some number more than a light year. So that's why the light can never reach us, and that's why it's outside of the observable universe. And as things get further away, as the space gets bigger, more and more and more of everything will get outside of the observable universe, right? So if humans can live, if we can manage to stay around for billions of years, you know, our observable universe will start to involve a lot less stuff, right? And, you know, on some level, that might freak you out. I mean, the thing is, we have a lot of stuff near us. But I could definitely understand being freaked out by that. So, Emu wants to know which part of this diagram is beer space. All of it.
Currently, right at this particular moment, we are inhabiting beer space. Although
Yeah.
we're not consuming beer.
Yep. So, one of the things you should be able to do, let's say you have a star, which we'll represent with a diamond. If you could construct a sort of shell of some sort around the star, but give it an opening, you could propel that star, right? So some of the energy from the star will be exiting in roughly one direction. And the whole darn thing will move. One of the things we could do, because remember, the actual observable universe is going to involve less and less and less stuff. And someone like you or me, we might not kind of like that. We might want to say, all this stuff near us, we don't want it eventually to go away. We want to have access to it forever. One of the things we could do is there's actually like a limit. Let's say the fastest we could ever go is a quarter of the speed of light. You know, or if it was a half speed of light, it'd be like this. If it was a quarter, it'd be like this. If it's a tenth, then it's like this. The point is, we have some sort of area where we can theoretically, as long as we do it within the next, I don't know, billion years, we could send spacecraft out there, construct a bunch of spheres, start around their stars, and start moving all of those galaxies closer to us, right? Literally just start pulling them in. So that way, as the universe expands, they don't end up outside of the observable universe anytime soon, right? As it gets smaller, they come in closer, and we keep them all, right? And that's, so in, you have the local group, right? The local group is like the local group of galaxies that we live in. The one you might know of, besides the Milky Way, is Andromeda, right? You've probably heard of Andromeda. Andromeda is the largest galaxy within our local group, and the Milky Way is the second largest. And most of the other ones are dwarf galaxies, often orbiting our own. And those are on a collision
and
course
the Milky
already.
Way galaxy on a course to collide and merge at some point.
Yeah, they are. So they're already coming together. But there's other groups nearby that we could grab and pull them closer. But keep in mind, so let's say this sphere here, right? Or this sphere is what we could potentially grab. There is a slightly bigger sphere of stuff we can't necessarily grab and pull closer and keep near us, but we might be able to send people out to colonize them before they're outside of our observable universe, right? So we could send some ships out here to colonize these places and put humans there, knowing that by the time they get there and start to set up, we're never going to hear from them again. We're never going to see them again. They're going to be outside of the observable universe, right? I mean, a lot of intergalactic colonization, especially if you are going only at fractions of speed of light. I mean, it is a one-way trip, but this is going to be very much a one-way trip. Can you say something?
I was going to say that assumes that there will never, ever be some kind of way to travel through like foldable space or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I'm assuming like foldable space, faster than light travel, that stuff would all require new physics, right? These are potential ideas for things that could be physically possible, but would need quite a lot, right? And there is a possibility that can never, ever happen. It may be that as a species, we are going to maybe at our fastest go at a fraction of the speed of light, like a quarter of the speed of light. But I mean, it would be, it's I don't know, it kind of freaks me out. It feels like I'm standing on the edge of the cliff thinking about the fact that, okay, so you're going to have the observable universe from Earth closed to this, and there's sort of a time frame where there's going to be like a last day, one last day where you could send out a ship from Earth and it'll reach this galaxy. And if you send it out on that last day, it'll get there, but it'll never be in an observable universe again, right? And none of the people there will be in our observable universe by the time they get there. There's one last day, and then they're gone forever. And it's like they're going over a pelagic cliff and never coming back.
Yeah, I mean, none of that stuff should be like an impediment to doing that.
No,
like, you know.
But it is like kind of freaky, right?
Sure. Yeah.
KNAT says, don't you think wormholes are more likely than moving galaxies? No? I mean, moving galaxies with what we're talking about here would require a lot of technology we don't have, but not necessarily any science we don't have. Actually, utilizing wormholes would require not only technology, but literal physical science we don't have about how that would work. Right? Like, we could brute force make this real. As far as faster than light travel or wormholes, there's no path to brute force that, right? At least not with our current understanding of physics. Were you going to say something, Krogan?
I was going to say that the freaky thing of how did you phrase it? The pelagic cliff.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of ways, I mean, I guess the way you can think of it is like being in a scenario where people have seen movies or read books or whatnot. They've consumed media-acted content that puts this idea out there, or they've read about like actual, like, you know, I mean, if you're in a military squad and you got to be the guy that gets left behind so that everybody else can live or whatever, it's kind of like the same sort of sentiments. I mean, there's some like psychological overlap, I think. Although
so.
in this case, you know, you don't actually die. You just never see each other again.
It's just like a permanent separation. And it's like, you know, again, a lot of this is probably going to be very much one-way trips anyway, but it's a permanent separation where, like, there's no way where this person, like, you can see the stars they live at even anymore. You can't see the stars they live at. If they took the fastest thing, light, and tried to send you a signal with it,
it would not be able to reach.
It would never reach you. The space between you and them is expanding more quickly than the light can go.
Right. Which
it would
just,
be this message to you that would never get there.
Yeah. That's this is going to sound pompous, but like not every, I mean, I think most human beings can't comprehend that idea. Like, like most people don't. And this, again, it sounds really pompous, but this is just kind of like to bring home to everybody how human biodiversity and how egalitarianism are really like egalitarianism is just the idea that everybody's the same is just nonsense. Like most human beings probably cannot understand intellectually what Embargo just said. Like, and that's something that, you know, it's very important to understand that not everybody understands that. Like, if you have the
Yeah.
ability to understand that not everybody understands that, because it's like, I remember watching a couple days ago. I think I saw some. Well, I don't want to talk about that, but yeah, that's important to understand.
Mhm.
That not everybody understands all of that.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I always thought, okay, with enough effort, anyone could learn anything. And my father disagreed, and I later found out he was very correct. I mean, it's very
Right, which
true.
is in some ways more mind-boggling than the concept you were just talking about.
I have a quick
It's like,
question.
Go ahead.
What would be the feasibility of sending the entire Netflix company to another galaxy such that they could still produce their crap, but the signal would never reach us again?
Hmm. I think we could pull that off.
But yeah. I mean, it's a very hard hurdle to. Again, this is going to sound pompous, but Embargo and I are both in the 99th percentile, and yet there are people who are so much smarter than us that like we can't comprehend things that they can comprehend.
Oh, yeah.
Like these are like, again, these are very important things for people to understand, that there are hard limits on what various peoples can fathom.
Mhm.
And like, just like you said, as a kid you think, well, with enough effort you can teach anybody any concept, and it's like, no, there are some concepts that are literally outside the realm of your possibility. And if you're in the 98th to 99th percentile, you know pretty much any job you can think of, you're able to do with enough effort. But nevertheless, there are these really far extremes still that like you can't grasp.
Yeah.
It's just some wild stuff
I
to
mean,
think
could you
about. Like
imagine Newton developing calculus when there was no calculus in the world?
right?
I mean, that's not like, oh, you got to be in the top 1%. No, I mean, you got to be in the top 1% of the top 1% in the
yeah,
top
that's like
1%.
orders of magnitude above like where I'm at. Like
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it's
you
just
can't. Yeah, no, I mean, none of us can do that. But like, this is a visual representation of the expansion of space. Like, imagine um, we're sending a signal from one place, and we add this every year, right? So this is a light year. The signal traveling at the speed of the light moves across space that amount, right? But this is the original space between these two locations. But during the 1 light year, when that moved to there, that moved this little amount, the actual space grew by much more than that. So that's what we're like. We could send people to places like that where the space expands. And this is where we talk about potentially the end of of the universe, right? Like, this would be the goal, to live this long. One of the potential ends of our universe is the Big Rip. So everything's the speed at which things are not moving apart, but the speed at which the space between things expand, right? Because there's expansion happening within a planet, right? The space is getting bigger, but it's like really slow and small, and at most, a couple, molecules are shifting to fill the space as it gets made, right? So it's tiny, it's insignificant. But if space is expanding and space is increasing at the rate it's expanding, eventually the expansion within a planet will be greater than the force of gravity holding it together. Eventually, the space between H2O, right, the two hydrogens and the oxygen, eventually the space between them will expand greater than the force that holds that molecule together. Eventually, if the Big Rip turns out to be true, you were to look at an actual atom, the electrons around it, and the nucleus inside, there will be such a rapid expansion of space between the electrons and the nucleus that nothing will have electrons on it anymore. And then finally, it'll expand the space between the neutrons and the protons, and there will be no more atoms. There will only be subatomic particles expanding from each other at insane speeds, right?
Yeah, right.
And then eventually the breakdown of subatomic particles.
This reminds me of the movie, and I know how much you love movies, but this reminds me of the movie The NeverEnding Story with the Nothing.
Oh yeah?
Like, yeah, it's like, are you familiar with the movie at all?
I did see that one.
Okay. Well, the Nothing's just like, it's basically it's an easily accessible analogy for what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Just this ever expanding nothing.
Yeah, but I think in the Nothing you have there's like a border, there's like a boundary, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I see
like
you kind of have
King's
this
Langoliers
a similar
or
thing with
whatever,
like
so,
the observable universe. That would be your boundary, and that would get closer and closer and closer. And as it got so close to you, matter would no longer be able to hold itself together, at some point.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I don't know enough about physics or the current schools of thought on this, but I guess I just suspect that eventually people are going to figure out new levels. I just suspect that in the end, the Big Rip isn't going to be a thing, that humans will figure out that the universe actually functions along there's some other level along which
kind of breathes in and breathes out in some sort of cycle or something.
I don't know. I just don't think that
there's been the theory of a big crunch where it expands, and then sort of rubber bands down, and slams together and makes the next big bang, right?
Yeah.
Well,
so that would be the end of us in that sense.
You are both an expansionist and an accelerationist.
I mean, certainly we could find out things that really turn everything on its head. That being said, I'm not gonna say, well, I just don't want to say we'll probably at the moment it looks like an insurmountable cliff. We might be able to surmount it, but I'm not gonna assume we are. I mean, one of the ways we might have to surmount it, if it's such a thing as possible, is multiverse theory.
I'm not going to assume that the white race is going to exist in 200 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's where I'm at. So this is all fun stuff to talk about, and it would be really great if this is what most really smart people were working on. But as it stands, seems like a lot of smart people are working on quote unquote really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Which is just
so
kind
what
of
is
depressing.
Expanding faster, the known universe or the list of genders?
I mean, it depends on how you measure it, right? Like the known universe is adding more space to it than the list of genders is getting bigger physically. That being said, as a percentage, the list of genders has exploded multiple thousands of percent recently. So I don't know if the universe has done that in the same time frame. It might be the list of genders. Merlin says space is fake. They don't want you to know about the firmament.
Oh God! Oh my God!
He's joking.
There have been some people. Yeah, I know, but there have been some people in one of my Telegram groups that was like pushing some of that, and it's just like, just stop, please.
I always thought it would be
Just-
neat if I won the lottery. I've had ideas about like you could create a nice, like a high quality YouTube channel where you're like, let's take like empiricism to the extreme and like observe the Earth. Like, let's just observe it, make observations. All these videos I could make about how the shape of the Earth can be determined, like from a really basic standpoint. I thought that would be really cool. You know, one of the things you could do. So, like, okay, let's just move over here. Right. Okay. So let's say you've got a couple models of Earth, right? So here's, that's a flat circle. Let's do a couple flat circles. Move this. Then we'll create a sort of sphere, just represent that like that. So let's say this circle is North Pole at the center. This circle is South Pole at the center. Here's North, South. So here, these are two flat Earth models. On this one, we have the equator, right? Let's grab. So here's the equator on this one. On this thing, this is the equator right there. Now, it depends on how you model it. But basically, if you go to the equator, right? And you set up two dune buggies. Let's say you're in Africa, or you set up two planes. You know, you do this somewhere where you can set it up fairly nicely. And you do that on the equator, whatever the Earth happens to look like, right? Then you give them both accurate compasses. You want to go north, right? Well, on this, you can go north and then you can go south. You could even have 4 dune buggies and you could do it simultaneously. On this particular model, the path north converges and the path south, or just north away from north, diverges. On this model, the path north diverges, but the path south converges. And on this model, it converges in both directions. So let's say you have them go a few miles. They started exactly 500 meters apart, and now they're 498, right? I mean, this is just a very simple sort of way to say, like, if these people are drawing 2 straight lines to north, this is what we'd expect. So in real life, when you do the experiment, are you going to get a convergence in one direction, which would lead to a flat Earth, or a convergence in both directions, which would be a spherical Earth, geoid, as like this? And I thought about, it'd be really neat to even make a full sort of like really detailed model of Earth, because like there's all sorts of things you'd have to model. Like here in our galaxy, we got the sun, right? And one of the things about the sun in the sky physically, when you just look at it, sometimes it's bigger and sometimes it's smaller. And in the model we have now, that is modeled as a somewhat elliptical orbit of Earth around the sun, right? It's not a perfect circle. It's an ellipse. Well, in some of these flat Earth models where they have like a sun that's just above the Earth, they could model that by like, okay, let's grab So here's the flat Earth on its side, right? So this is what the flat Earth looks like on its side. The sun, there's two ways they could model that, right? One of the ways they would model sun growing and shrinking is literally make a sun that grows and shrinks. Like, it gets bigger, then it gets smaller, and then it gets bigger again. The other way is to put it on a track like this. So sometimes it's get closer and farther away. Were you going to say something?
I was gonna say I gotta go,
Okay.
but there was something I wanted to read real quick. If I can
Well, just think about
find
it for a second. And also, you have to deal with seasons. On our Earth, we have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. The Earth tilts. On this one, if you want to represent seasons with a small Earth floating above the sun, you have to do this, right? So if you really make a sophisticated flat Earth model that attempts to fit with what we see, if you combine this here with this down here, what you end up with is this corkscrewing sun through the sky. It's corkscrewing through the sky, which is like a neat idea. I mean, it's not accurate, but it is sort of neat to go through this intellectual exercise of trying to take every observable fact and fit it into a model that doesn't like break. And that's one of the things that you saw, like, today you'll see some flat Earth people and they're taking it very seriously. I remember years and years ago when the internet was still much newer, you would have Usenet and primitive websites and forums where people would do this sort of thing, right? They would create like, okay, how can we make this sort of model fit the observable evidence? And you end up with these corkscrewing stuff. And it's like this really rigorous mental exercise for like bored nerds.
Yeah. Right. And then people who aren't anywhere near as smart as them get a hold of that, and then they take it seriously, and then they run with it.
Well, I mean, it was funny too. You'd have these flat Earth forums where they're like creating these really complex models for, as like an intellectual stimulation. And you would have these people show up to tell them how stupid they were, because they were taking it seriously. And a lot of them really enjoyed the trolling. So they played along, like, no. So it's like you have this 150 IQ guy creating
that's so
these.
bad. That's like not a good thing to do. Like,
it's not a good thing, but they were doing it.
If anybody really out there has like an IQ of in excess of 150 who like gets their jollies off doing that, I'm begging you, please don't do that. Like, please.
But
don't do
I'm
that.
almost positive it happened. Some of these guys were really smart. Like, they were creating these crazy models. They were having a good time. This 105 IQ midwit would show up and be like, you guys are fucking crazy. The Earth is round. You guys are stupid. And they would really enjoy, like, dunking on this guy because at the end of the day, they could make more coherent arguments, at least rhetorically, for why the Earth is flat than that 105 IQ sort of midwit could argue for why it's round.
This is like this is why I hate IQ snobbery, really, because this just ties into why I hate IQ snobbery, because like there are plenty of like even like stupid people who whose behavior is admirable and good and all that, and like there's somebody who's really 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 smart who is behaving in a really maladaptive way and is using their intelligence for really maladaptive douchebaggery types of things, and it's just like, yeah.
But yeah, I thought about it'd be kind of cool to have a program where you create maybe even a bunch of models of Earth, like this one. Now when you drive away from the equator towards the poles, what exactly behavior are you expecting from this model? But I thought it'd be cool for a program if you like started off with a bunch of models, like a square Earth and a spherical Earth and a flat Earth, and you start to observe the evidence, and you try and make the evidence consistent with every model, and eventually each model will have to drop out. Like each model might not be able to be physically consistent with certain facts sort of at the same time. So, yeah. Albino says Raptor Earth is fine, but T-Rex Terra is superior. Oh. So, Krogan, did you have something you wanted to say before you go? You were looking for something?
Yeah, I was looking for this. You said something. I forget what you said now, but it was something about getting smaller, and it just—I don't know why, but it triggered
Big
my
Crunch?
brain.
Everything else crunching in on itself?
I don't
And then
know
a
if it
new
was
Big
that,
Bang? Oh.
but it just reminded me of how certain Native Americans regarding the ghost dance religion that was cropping up from the 1850s to the 1880s, well, late 1870s, and there were some people who argued that you had to do the ghost dance in order to bring about the giant floods and earth slides that would wipe out all the white people, while all the Native Americans went up high and were safe. And the Native Americans who didn't do the dance, who didn't help bring about the end of the white people, they would become really, really, really small. They would get like 2 feet high, and they would stay that way forever.
Wow.
Like this is a real, like, I have a quote from this Native American who like was telling this U.S. Army captain like what he was told by a Paiute Indian in terms of like how events would unfold, and like that's like something some people really thought, that if some Native Americans didn't dance hard enough, that or if they didn't dance at all, they would get really, really, really small after all the white people went away.
Bummer. That's it's like, you don't do this, you're gonna go to hell, only slightly different. It's a sort of a social saming, social control.
Permanently. Like, you will live in perpetual midgetry.
I don't know if we can say that word anymore. I know it sounds spooky,
well, I just made that up, so you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
true.
like
True. Not a word.
because it's not really a word. It doesn't exist. And
exactly.
We can't. You can't. Well, actually, wokeness has proven that people can be prosecuted and persecuted for things that don't exist, because whiteness doesn't actually exist. White people don't really exist yet. We're being quote unquote persecuted. So I mean, there's some pretty interesting physics going on within wokeness. One might argue. Anyway, I'm done being dumb. I gotta run, but
all right.
I had a lot of fun today, and I hope everybody has a good weekend, and I will talk to you all later.
All right, peace.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I thought if you made a whole bunch of models, right? So like on this Earth, if you had a cone-shaped Earth, in this Earth too, you would also, if you had two objects at the equator and going towards the two poles, it would converge in one direction, diverge in the other direction until you got to the bottom, and then you would quickly start converging. So if we were to lay this out flat, so like here's the equator, and then we're gonna make two poles here and here, well, down here. So your path to the poles on a cone Earth from the equator would be like this. Boom, boom, and then it would be boom, boom, bang. This would be a really wild one. This is the cone Earth path to the poles. Osaka says, Embargo is letting out his inner artist. Yeah, you can tell my artistry is, like, I'm a real great artist. Schmerling says, Taurus Earth, best Earth. I know my Taurus here looks just sort of like a disc with a hole in it, but that is supposed to be a Taurus, aka a donut shape. And that would have very interesting implications for poles. wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would be, you would end up with this weird thing where you would end up with a slight convergence, but never actually arriving at the pole. It would then point you towards the empty space in the center, right? So the pole wouldn't be on Earth. So it would be, I don't, it'd be really hard to flatten this out. But if we were to flatten it out, it would be like, boom. Be like bang, bang. And then the path to the pole wouldn't actually bring you to the pole. It would just bring you to like here. It would be kind of like this. But keep in mind, this location and this location are the same location. Because they're both wrapping around to the other side of the torus. A sort of inner equator, right? So think of this as portals, right? Is this red? There you go. Portals. That's how a torus works. You never... So this... Well, actually... Oh, well... That assumes that you have a pole in the center, but... Okay. You'd have to... This doesn't make much sense with a pole at the center, because the other pole would be at the equator. So maybe not exactly that. You would have to actually maybe put a pole suspended up above the circle and below. It would still end up with this sort of look, though. Right? You would sort of get to here, and that's the closest you could get to the pole, because the gap, this gap now, is like not a gap you can cross from land. It's up here, or down here. Merlin says hypercube Earth win. Emu says toroids make a lot of sense. It would explain where the German submarines disappeared to. You mean into the hole? Schmerling says this stuff would be cool to have in an open world video game. You know, I thought so. I thought this would be kind of neat. It's sort of like a setting for a world, like a radically different shaped world. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make sense physically. I know every once in a while I'm online, someone will ask me, why is the Earth round? You know? The reality is, if you had a perfectly square Earth, let's say a cube Earth like this, I mean, like, if you made Earth in this shape right now, like if you brought it into existence, the gravitational forces are so strong that these sides here would start to bow out. Like here and here, here, here. And some of these flat surfaces in the center would bow out, but also these, or let's do it more like this. These flat surfaces here would bow out, and these would be represented as giant peaks, right? Here on the edge, and they would start to fall in. And then you would have then that would make a new sphere, right? So if you created a cube Earth, it would last for, I don't know, a little bit. I have no idea how long it would last. It would fall apart. It would immediately fall into this, or it would start the immediate fall into a sphere. This is just gravity. Schmerling says Halo had a ring Earth, though it wasn't open world. Yeah, so that was I mean, so the Halo is a halo, right? So it's let's do this. It's like bonk. Boink. And then this. Oh god. Can I bring this down on? Probably should have did this at the beginning. Whoosh. So it's like that, right? That's the halo. And then there's, you know, water and land in there. So, boink. Water. Which one's green? dark red, brown, green. So, like, that's your halo. And this thing out here on is the outer side. And if you remember, I talked a lot about cylinders, right? So, like an O'Neill cylinder. Let's do it like this. So, if you just stack up a bunch of these on top of each other, well, what do you get? Well, you get a cylinder, right? So, I mean, so the ring and the cylinder are fundamentally the same sort of habitat. Bonk. So, you can see how this is, if we take the cylindrical habitat that's rotating and we cut it into slices, we're just getting these large rings. So that's how the halo ring works, right? It's just, it's the same idea. Emu says, imagine if the Earth had rings. You know, we could maybe give it rings. We would need shepherd moons to keep the rings, though. Right? That's why Saturn has rings still, right? So, like, you have a bunch of dust, right? And all that dust starts to collect. You know, like a couple dust motes bump into each other, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, you get enough gravity that really starts to suck in more and more space dust. And then you get this crazy big accretion disk, right, of dust. And it forms a star in the center and then clumps up some dust to make planets. And a lot of those planets have rings, right? Brand new planets will have rings. But a planet's only going to keep rings if it has shepherd moons or some sort of satellite that maintains the rings, because otherwise they'll either fall in or fly off. Generally, they won't stay there forever. I mean, even our own, like, things orbiting other things tend to either fall off or fly off, or fall in or fly off, right? So when you see a solar system with planets, the planets you see are just all the ones that didn't fly off or fall in, right? A lot of the other ones probably did that already. And our own, if this is Earth, right? And then we have a little moon. I mean, our own moon is flying off. For anyone who doesn't know. A long time ago, the moon was a lot closer. But it is slowly... Whoa. Oh, wrong thing. It is slowly spiraling out. The moon that our ancestors knew was bigger. Wasn't a lot bigger, right? Because it's not moving that quickly. I want to say it's like an inch a year or something. Moon spiral. I'm on a different window here. Away per year. 3.6 centimeters further away from Earth every year. 3.8 cm to inch. 1.5 inches. So right now, plus 1.5. Let's just put P. Let's put PYR. So, boom. 1.5 inches per year. And eventually that number will get bigger. So, like, there's probably also a number that we could do to this. Like, it's probably like 0.03 or something inches per year. Like, there's an acceleration to this. But if you were to go back far enough, well before humans, you know, back before dinosaurs even, the moon would have been substantially closer and therefore would appear bigger. And also our tides would be bigger, right? You know, the ocean tides might be massive in a early Earth. Merlin says, if the next game you stream isn't space related, I'm going to be very disappointed. Well, it's a possibility. We could do something space related. Schmerling says, unless it's Mass Effect, then I'll be disappointed regardless. But I'll mention this because I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't know, but some people think they know. So here you have Earth. Very far away, you have the sun. Uh-oh. Closed all my windows all at once. Okay. So I'm gonna... does everyone know how the tides works? You know how the tides work? You know the tides? Okay. So some people have no idea why the tides work. The other people will say certain things. The tides... Well, I'll see what chat says. Anyone know what tides work? Or yes or no is fine too. You don't actually have to explain it. Do you know why we have tides? So anyone who like really doesn't know, let's grab this. If this is the beach, right? What am I on? Oh yeah, okay. If this is the beach, the tide is the literal water line and the fact that it changes. There's times where it's lower, and then it'll go higher, then it'll go lower again. So you have some beaches that are like crazy shallow, right? There are some beaches that are like they have like a mile of like water that's like a few inches deep. So when the tide goes out, the beach just moved a mile away. It's like so far away now. Everyone's parking like 2 miles from the water, and you're like, why is everyone parking so far away? And then after a few hours, the water is like almost in the parking lot, right? Knat says the tide is because water pouring down at the poles. No, that's not it. Emu says the tides work because all these turbines we put in the water push the water out, right? No, that's not it. Pale Hominid says tides come in, tides goes out. You can't explain that. Schmerling says tides are the ocean sneezing. Few knows this. Few knows this. The ocean sneezing. No, that's... Knat says, am I sure? Yes, I'm sure. The poles are deserts, as far as I know. I know South Pole is. If you look at the annual precipitation of the pole, it's tiny. But, so basically the tides are caused by gravity. Normally when you ask someone this and they know, what they'll say is the gravity of the moon. But it's really the sun and the moon. Let's ignore the sun for a second, right? And just look at the moon. Because again, most people say why the tides are caused is the moon and the moon alone. So there is a gravitational pull to the moon. So if the moon's here, let me grab the blue. You do have this slight buildup of water over here. Right? So the water is going sort of towards the moon, and it's like basically you have like a one water molecule here, and it's got we'll put a gravity vector this way. Well, this one here has the same gravity vector, but then it's being counteracted by a gravity vector from the moon. And so it's like it weighs less in a way. It's just as massive, but it weighs less. And you have this pooling of water towards the moon, right? So as the moon goes around, the tide moves, right? Now, people who think it's just the moon, why we have the tides, they are missing a piece because... Why do we have... Because what actually happens is you kind of get this sort of effect. This sort of like... beep, right? So it's water's actually being kind of sucked in, imagine, on this side and then bulged out on the ends, right? Why do we have bigger tides on a full moon than a half moon, right? If it's a half moon, we have smaller tides. If it's a full moon, we have bigger tides. And if it's a new moon, where you can't see the moon at all, it's also bigger tides. This is the difference between spring tides and neap tides. Spring tides are the big ones. Neap tides are the small tides. So sometimes you'll have like a beach where like the water will go out miles, it'll come back, it'll go out miles, it'll come back. And then sometimes during the bigger tides, when it comes back, it doesn't just come back to here, it comes up partway up the wall and like there's no more sand anymore. It's just like on the rocky wall. It's like the beach is gone when there's a full moon. The beach can be gone when there's a new moon. And the answer is the sun, right? Because it'll create a line, right? All three of these will create a line together, which will exacerbate this effect here. Because now we got some strong pull. Like, this is what a full moon looks like, right? This is a full moon situation. Oh, shit. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to do that. This is a full moon, where the sun and the earth are on opposite sides. The water here is really getting sucked in. It's you got these really strong big tides because the earth is in line between the two celestial objects. And the new moon is like this, right? This is a new moon where you let's grab boink. So the side of the moon, oh no. Really? Oh, now I see why. The side of the moon towards us is still perfectly dark, right? So you don't even see the moon at all. It's a new moon, but they're both of these celestial objects are on the same side of the Earth, so you get these really strong tides. And again, the strong tides are the spring tides. Oh my god. Is that blue? Oh, here we go. Bonk. Really, so you got some low tides and some high tides. This is spring tide. Those are the big beefy tides. The neap tides, I believe it's NEA. Oh my god, it is really hard to draw with a mouse. Neap tides are the baby tides. The babby. B-A-B-B-Y. Babby. Babby tide. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, Osaka says moon is closer to the Earth during a full new moon. Maybe that would explain it. So, the let's grab boink. The moon does vary in its distance to Earth. That being said, the distance that it varies is not tied to it being full or new moons. So sometimes you have full moons that are bigger than other full moons. So if the moon was at its closest to Earth, at the same time the Earth was at its closest to the sun, and they're all three in alignments, you're going to have, or it's a full moon or a new moon, which is all three in alignment, roughly. You are going to have the biggest of the big tides, right? And then when the moon is at its furthest, the sun is at its furthest, and it's not in alignment, you have half moons. Those will be the smallest of your big tides, right? Those will be the neapiest of the neap tide. Well, no, they'll actually be, everything will average out more. Like our low tides won't be as low and our high tides won't be as high. So, Emu says, when I have children, can you do MS Paint streams for them? Yeah, maybe. How much are you going to pay me? I mean, look at, this is probably the best looking thing I did here. It's pretty bad. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much done. I think we covered everything. We got to talk about space colonies. We shot bugs. We lost a few games in Deep Rock Galactic. Oh. Ugh. Well. And I believe, let me pull up a picture real quick. What's that? Is it a Ulysse Nadan? Tide? Ulysse Nadan Moon? Was it Moonstruck? Wait, is it? Oh, this one looks different than I'm used to seeing. There we go. Let me open this. Oh, man. Image. This is the last thing we're doing. Then I'm leaving. I haven't looked at one of these in a while. I forget exactly how to read it. All right, so this is some crazy expensive watch. It's probably like $50,000 or $100,000 or something. But you can see. I think you can see. I wish I could use my mouse when I was doing this. See around the left side there? There's a circle that's half yellow. That's the moon phase. And if you look at the top of the dial, there's a bulge, and at the bottom of the dial, there's a bulge. And that has to do with the tides. So it has to do with the position of the sun in the sky, the mission of the moon phase, and it helps tell you what tides you're going to experience, and whether it's going to be a neap tide or a spring tide. Let's just watch their stupid video. I don't think it should matter if I watch their video. It's just an advertisement we're going to watch. They're not going to be mad at me for watching an ad, right? Let me pull it up. Where's my window? Okay. Let's type in YouTube. Ulysse Garden Moonstruck. I think this will be it. Okay, 1 second. Just getting the windows situated. Move this over here. My other thing. I could really use another monitor. Oh, by the way, I'm going to have to open the chest on D-Live in a minute or two. Take a look at this thing. I want to hear how they explain how it works. Oh, is that loud? Oh, yeah. Pictures. There's the dial. Looks like it's mother of pearl or something. At least part of it. Or is that just enamel? Looks like they have loom on the hands, which is kind of weird. I mean, I don't think you're going to use that. Well, I mean, it's a $100,000 watch. I don't think they care. I don't think it matters, really, is what I mean. They care. So, here you have the moon. Okay, the moon has a tide, right? And I believe this is going to be the sun right there, which has a tide, right? See how it's got... you see what I said before about how it sort of sucks it in on the side? There's a little bit of blue here from the moon, and a little bit here. Okay, let's go back. Because it's both the moon and the sun. Some people think it's just the moon. Okay, let's let it fade in a little bit more. So you have this big hump, high tide from the sun. You get a hump on the other side, too. And it gets sucked in on the sides. The moon is here, you get a hump from the moon, and you get a hump on the other side. Well, if we align the moon with this hump, those humps combine, and you get these, especially high tide, and that's going to be a full moon. When the moon's over here, you get both big humps combining. That's a new moon, and that's going to be a spring tide. This is going to be a spring tide. If you're over here and you get a tide from the moon here, and it's not in alignment from the sun, and they're kind of working against each other slightly, that's the neap tide. Did I make this video? No, this is going to be the company. The company that makes this watch made this video. Is Ulysse Nadan? They're a Swiss watch manufacturer. They make $100,000 watches. They make cheaper watches too. I mean, cheaper. I mean, they make watches from a few $1,000s to, I don't know, millions. So this is their video. Not mine. But this is a watch they made, and it demonstrates the effect that I was talking about, and it represents it mechanically in real time on your wrist, which is neat, although it's insanely expensive. So I think, see, they're going to show them a line soon here. Okay, now they're aligned again, but it's a new moon. Before it was full moon. Oh, why is it cut off? But yeah, this is the moon disk. And then the outer one's the sun disk. Yep, outer one's the sun disk. And obviously they're moving independently of each other, right? In this mechanical timepiece. So this is a neap tide. See how like the moon is like almost perpendicular to the sun's position? They're like working against each other and the tides are less significant. Kaynad says it's the sun. He sees the sun, he assumes I made the video just because the sun's in it. Because I like to use that video from NASA. This is just an hour portrait, just for changing time zones and stuff. I think we covered most of the actual astronomical interest of this watch. Oh, there's a GMT bar. That helps too for navigation. That being said, like, I don't think the person wearing this $100,000 watch is engaging in actual celestial navigation for themselves, right? They probably have 5 or 6 different backup GPS systems on their mega yacht, you know? They're not out there with a sextant saying, oh, where am I, you know? That's just my guess, personally. I mean, they could. Even if they do have a sextant, they still do have 5 or 6 different GPS systems on their mega yacht. Okay, let's not kid ourselves here. So yeah, it's a mechanical self-winding watch. No, yeah, I don't think I could make a video like this. I mean, I'd have to learn a lot about video editing. And let me tell you, I hate video editing. You look at my YouTube channel and you're like, wow, there's dozens of video here. Yes, and I've hated doing every one of them. Video editing is like my least favorite thing to do. Oh, God. I hate video editing. Well, I mean, we can watch this for a little bit and see more about the watch. This is, again, most of the astronomical stuff is done. I mean, that's just a typical watch escapement. There was nothing, I mean, I'm sure it's finished to a higher quality. I'm sure it's nicer in some ways, but there was nothing in there from an escapement perspective that's different than other watches. And also, we just have more functions hooked up to the main sort of drivetrain of the watch. The functions like the moon phase and the sun disk and all that. Johnny 5K says flat Earth confirmed. Oh, because the watch is flat instead of a globe? Globe watch? I think there is like a solar system mechanical watch, I want to say. Yeah. I don't know if it's got the whole solar system in there, but
This is watch your style. Today I'm gonna
who is this? I want to see a commercial for this. Astronomia. Okay, let's... I mean, I'm sure he's a good guy or whatever, but I don't know if I should stream his videos on my channel, you know? I know if I stream some watchmaker's commercials on my channel, they'll be fine with it. Oh, here it is. Here's from the actual maker, Jacob & Co. Apparently from Geneva, which is where most of the watchmakers are going to be from. The Swiss manufacturers are going to be
high
from...
watchmaking.
Oh, it's going to be from Geneva.
Nomia gravitational triple axis tourbillon.
Triple
There is a
axis
lot going
tourbillon.
on in this beautiful timepiece, which is really a solar system on your wrist. Let's take a closer look.
Solar system. Is it just the sun
Instead
and
of
the
a
Earth?
regular dial, the Astronomia has 4 satellite arms rotating constantly. The first thing to know is that the time display, along with the other 3 satellites, rotates around the dial every 20 minutes. Thanks to a clever technical solution, the time display dial is always in the right orientation.
Oh, wow.
The 12 is always up. The tourbillon, on the second satellite across from the time display, turns in its cage every 60 seconds. The entire cage
Damn,
turns on
son,
itself
where'd you
every
find
5
this?
minutes.
Oh, God.
And
Someone
like the time
donated and
display,
I
rotates
don't have
around
the
the
window
dial
open.
every 20 minutes.
Oops.
The remaining 2 satellites consist of a hand-painted
No lives
magnesium
matter.
globe
Thanks
on
for the
one end
diamond.
and a
Rock
perfect
and stone.
Jacob and Company
Appreciate it.
diamond on the other. These 2 are exactly the same weight to maintain perfect balance. The globe and the diamond perform 1 revolution every 60 seconds and go around the dial every 20 minutes. The background for all of this spinning and turning is pure aventurine in one version,
That's a
evoking
diamond?
the starry
Oh,
sky.
my God.
The rose gold case is sapphire crystal
I guess
on
it would
all
be.
sides, so the entire universe of the watch
I
is
guess
on
I figured it
display.
was just a glass bead, but,
Setting
you
the
know,
watch
these
is
are...
easy.
It's
Just
probably a
turn
$1
the
million watch or
over,
something, so I guess they would
release
put a
the
diamond
bow,
there.
and set it just like any other watch. Winding is accomplished with the other bow, and a full wind provides 62
Emu
hours
says,
power
wearing an
reserve
entire
for
solar
manual
system on your
wind
wrist. Sounds like
movement.
a pretty fractal to me. It
Despite
reminds
its
me of
impressive
Men in
size,
Black. You
the
remember? They
Astronomia
had that
tourbillon is
cat with
extremely
the
comfortable.
galaxy on his...
The Astronomia
neck?
gravitational triple access tourbillon.
So,
every
what is the
5-minute
diamond
tourbillon
supposed to
on
be?
itself is
It's
always
supposed to
up
be
on
the sun,
display.
huh?
And like the time display rotates around the dial every remaining 2 satellites consist of a hand-painted magnesium globe on one end and a perfect Jacob and Company diamond on the other. These 2 are exactly the same weight.
Okay,
to
they just say
maintain
it's a diamond.
perfect balance.
I mean, it has to be the sun, otherwise it's not
The
much of
globe
a
and the
solar
diamond perform
system
1
with no
revolution every 60
star, you know? It is weird that it's smaller than the Earth, though. That being said, I'm sure they wouldn't put a massive diamond in there. I mean, it would be ridiculous. But I wanted to say there was some other solar system watch, wasn't there? Oh, here we go. Here's something. Van Cleef. Osaka says Europeans never cease to amaze me. Oh, the stuff they've done with mechanical watches is absolutely astonishing. Well, I mean, really, I mean, it's not like from a mathematic and planning perspective really much more amazing than like all the work put into celestial navigation from the last few centuries. I mean, if you look at what the French had to do to start determining longitude of land locations and start modernizing maps so that they didn't suck anymore, it's absolutely astonishing. One of the things that I talked about in today's video was Galileo and the discovery of the 4 largest moons of Jupiter, which are sometimes, I believe, called the Galilean moons, you know, after him. But that was, I believe, critical to determining the longitude of locations on land. Was the observations of those moons was what you'd do is you'd create these tables that would predict where those moons would be at certain times, and then once you have a known time, you can go across the world with these big pendulum clocks, set those pendulum clocks to solar noon where you're at, start making observations of the moons of Jupiter, compare what you see to the tables, figure out the time difference between where you are and known locations, and start to map out the world. And in fact, let's do DuckDuckGo. Okay, so it's lost more land to my astronomers. Okay, yeah. So here we have King Louis XIV is said to have quipped that his astronomers lost him more territories than his generals had won. Because when we started to be able to accurately map longitude on maps and make really accurate maps, so long ago, like you'd be shocked at how bad the maps were. Like, oldest maps of France. Some of these maps of France, I want older than that. Some of these maps of France from like 5 centuries ago would say a city is in one place, and the city itself on the map is like 50 miles away. Like, it's super wrong. Like, it's super inaccurate, these older maps. And there was just like no good way to do it. It was easy. It wasn't hard to measure latitude, but it was incredibly difficult to measure longitude. Measuring longitude on land relied, I believe, early on heavily on the moons of Jupiter that Galileo had discovered, which is why I mentioned him in the video that I released this morning on the main channel. Later on, of course, they did other things. They had the lunar method for determining longitude, and of course, just accurate chronometers. And Ulysse Nadan, the very first watch we looked at, Ulysse Nadan, they make fancy, $100,000 watches now. But their company is an old company, and what they originally started doing was they were making marine chronometers for ships, right? That's what their business was before they made all these modern multi-million-dollar watches or whatever. This is what they did. They made these and they serviced these. So that was what their business was. Whose video is this? Bun Special. If you want to check out a marine chronometer, then you can see Bun Special's thing. I don't want to steal people's content, really. I mean, I feel fine playing ads, to analyze the ads, but yeah. Emo says, I think the diamond is supposed to be a status symbol on that other watch. Yeah, I agree. That's what it's supposed to be. Emu says, that's why there are measurements in minutes and seconds on the globe in terms of latitude and longitude? Because it has to do with watches, you think? No, I mean, because we were measuring... why are you saying that we use minutes and seconds for degrees? Because we were doing it before we were using marine chronometers, weren't we? So for anyone who doesn't know... Do I have my paint open still? Okay. Oh god. This is a really big image now, all of a sudden. Okay. So let's just deal with the equator for a second. Whoa. What's on the screen? What's that? Okay, well, whatever. Trying to figure out if it's a smudge on my screen or if it's something with the program I'm using. Okay. Oh yeah, it's because I'm at 10,000 by 5,000. Okay, let's just bring it in. No one needs this, right? You all took your notes. Am I good to erase this? Okay. So we're going to create a great circle, which is a term that has to do with celestial navigation and the world and all this kind of stuff. So obviously there are, if we would go around, bonk. How many degrees to go around the world? 360, obviously. 360 degrees, right? That's a full turn, right? So, and just so you know, the sun is directly above a piece of ground, right? And that piece of ground is called the ground point. That ground point moves by 15 degrees every hour. Right. So you have that. which is 900 nautical miles. So, but for every 1 degree, which is just tiny, like 1 degree there, 1 degree is divided into 60 minutes, right? So let's do, God, 1 degree equals 60 minutes. We just use the one thing, right? For minutes. And 1 arc minute, 1 minute is 1, you can I think it's normally nm, 1 nautical mile. So if there's 1 nautical mile in 1 minute, if there's 60 nautical miles in 1 degree, then to go completely around the Earth would be 21,600 nautical miles. You can divide into smaller than 1 nautical mile, right? So 1, and this is going across the equator, right? So if you keep that in mind, right? If you're using like longitude lines, right? Well, they should look more like this. If you're using longitude lines, obviously 1 degree here is longer than 1 degree here. I mean, if you made a really tight circle around the North Pole, you could go 360 degrees in longitude in a couple seconds. You're not actually flying 21,000, nautical miles per second, which is called knots, right? NM per. But you can divide arc minutes into arc seconds, right? You can do 1 arc minute into 60 seconds. A lot of times in ships and stuff, they'll only do it in sort of like sixths, right? Or tenths. So a lot of times you'll get a decimal, like 1.5 arc minutes instead of 1 arc minute and 30 arc seconds, right? Or you can divide it into sixths and just use 10 minutes at a time. Because 1 nautical mile is like 6,000 feet. And 1 nautical mile is like 1,800. It's like 1,070 feet, or it's like 6,070 feet or something. And it's like 1,852 meters. So if you divide it in sixths, and you don't bother with going down to the actual second, but just the tens of seconds, that gives you these really nice 1,000 meter numbers. But, yeah. So, I forget how we started talking about this, but, yeah. The sun moves 15 degrees an hour. Which, obviously, 15 times 24 equals 360. Fuck. So that's why that works. Well. KNAT says the apostrophe is for arc minute. Well, this is arc minute. What's on arc second? Anything? Arc minute. Arc second. Apostrophe. Because you have the degrees sign next to the degrees. Oh yeah, for arc second you have it's like an inch, right? So you have anyone who doesn't live in the United States. This is 5 foot, 11 inches. This is also 5 arc minutes and 11 arc seconds. Okay, there you go. So so KNAT says arc minutes and arc seconds are latitude, I think. So it's arc minutes and arc seconds work if you're working off a degree of a great circle. And the equator is a degree of the great circle. So if you wanted to move from here to here, you're not moving in latitude, but you are moving in longitude, and it does work here. You can have great circles that are like wang, and that's sort of through the other side of the world. You can have great circles not like this, but this is the easiest great circle to use is the equator. Right. So yeah. And okay, I'm about done. I've been talking for a long time. I'm thirsty. I gotta go. We're already more than an hour over. My God. Well, I'm done. Where's my thing? Get rid of that. Let's close all this. I hope you took your notes. Test is next week. I'll open the chest on D Live now, and then I'm gonna have to decide on a game real quick for not today, but at some point probably. Well, not right now was what I mean, but probably sometime today or something for the game that I'll start playing next Wednesday on stream. Okay, the treasure chest is opening on D Live. Yeah, KNAT. So you saying on longitude it's not arc minute and arc second, it's minute second. Well, so like everything gets shrunk as you get towards the North Pole, but if you are navigating on a great circle, it should all be arc minute and arc second, right? But all right, I'm out. Peace, everybody. Have a good weekend.